Call the meeting to order if you'll join us for the pledge. All right, would you do the honors? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Guess we're set. What I'd like to do tonight is we're going to review the warrant articles that were proposed by the town, and then after we get through those, we'll review the warrant articles that the school district has proposed. So hopefully it won't take too long. The warrant articles, when we do these, the vote has to appear on the ballot. So when we vote on these warrant articles, it has to be a show of hands so that Tony can get the counts for and opposed to any one of the warrant articles. So it's not the regular voice vote. So I guess everybody got their new books, updated pages. So we're going to start with Article 9 because there's some other zoning articles on the ballot that would come before these, but we don't weigh in on the zoning amendments or anything to do with zoning. We only review and vote on the articles that involve expenditures of money. So I guess if everybody's all set, we can begin with Article 9.
Jerry, can I interrupt for a minute? We had one change to the budget, and I didn't want to skip over that. If you look on like the third page of the handout, we have a new contract with Waste Management, and you'll see there it's gone from, it's up to $280,000. It used to be $272,000. We took that budget up $7,800 just to cover the new contract. That's the only change we've made to the budget, and I just wanted to highlight that before we got into the warrant articles.
Okay, we should probably, make that.
I'll make a motion to accept that amendment.
Okay. Let's see.
Prove it now, Jerry, before we get to the...
I'll second.
Sure, a motion and a second to increase that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thanks.
That was easy.
Can I take one more comment here? On Article 9, before we get into it, for the people that haven't been in the town as long as some of us old-timers, when we built the fire station down there, we did it all with reserve balance money. The whole thing was like $980,000. And then when we did the upstairs, we used reserve fund money again to do that. And this, in the warrant articles, just to stick with tradition and say we built the entire building, including the parking lot, with reserve money, I'm asking that we take the $50,000 to pay the parking lot out of the reserve balance. And then and it's no big thing, but just tradition, we've done it that way, and I'd like to finish the building that way. So you'll see that we're asking for that $50,000 to come out of the reserve balance.
Oh, okay. Which line was, do you know the line that was?
It's on Article 9.
Article 9, okay, all right, yeah.
If you remember right, that never got finished paved when they built the building.
Right,
so.
I think that's just the base coat that's
It's
down
a
on
base
that
coat.
now, right? So,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept Article 9.
Second.
motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Hands?
Well, I mean, so that's for the entire warrant article without reading it? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We don't have to read it. So we're voting on Article 9 now, so those in favor, raise your hand.
Nine zip? 10 zip.
That was easy. I didn't even have to read it. You guys didn't even have to suffer through me stumbling through that.
Try the next one.
Article 10, See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,000 to purchase and install 3 radio repeaters and 13 digital portable or mobile radios for the Department of Public Works. The special warrant article will be non-lapsing appropriation RSA 32:7, Section 6, and will not lapse until the repeaters and radios are fully operational, or December 21st, 2020, whichever is earlier. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. Did you have anything to add to that, Denny, or we?
Yeah, what happened is that when our former chief of police retired and left, our license for the radio down there kind of fell through the cracks, so right now, we have to reapply for the license, and we're putting in repeaters, and we're putting in new digital radios. So it's to bring it back up to standard. We literally have very old equipment right now, and this is to have radios in all the trucks and for the workers down there.
So we're going from analog to digital. Now, this wasn't something we could use the technology fund for, right, Kelly? I mean, did we discuss that, upgrading from analog to digital? Would that qualify for?
We probably could, but there's only $2,000 in the technology fund anyway.
Okay.
So I'd rather do it as a standalone, because it all goes together. Right now, we're on analog, and we cannot speak to the police department. Our highway department cannot speak to the police department or the fire department because they've gone digital. The only ones they have communication with right now is the school. So this is what it's going to take to get us into the digital and be able to communicate with our own fire and police, which is very important, obviously, during an emergency, that highway and police and fire can communicate.
Priscilla, you had a question?
Yeah, this is something we discussed during the CIP meetings when we met with him, and we suggested that he put in this warrant article because they were piecemealing it one at a time.
Yeah, rather than do it individually, and a little here, a little there, because there wasn't enough of the technology fund, just put it done, so we got everybody talking to each other in an emergency situation.
Right. Okay, any more questions on Article 10?
Move the article.
Got a motion on that?
Yep.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Raise your hand. Thank you. 10-0.
On Article 11, a little background, Howie and I went up to Conway and discussed with the engineer the plan that we presented here in the summertime. And since then, the timing on the bridge construction has moved back, mainly due to funding from the state. We were going to recommend a contribution of $125,000, but because it's pushed back, we only put in $25,000 this year.
Yeah, we've done quite a bit of upgrading in equipment and things this year. It's been so see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of the $25,000 to be added to the bridge construction capital reserve fund previously established. This appropriation is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0.
Just so you know, we've got 74,000 in there now.
74 now.
Yep.
Make a motion to approve that article.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Raise your hand. Article 12, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,000 to be added to the ambulance capital reserve fund previously established. Appropriation is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. And I know that Todd Todd's always had a really good plan for the replacement of all the equipment down there. So I'm pretty sure this is probably going along with the plan that Todd has. He's had his own CIP going on down there for years.
Yeah, he had it down for either 20 or 21. So we currently have 84,000 in that trust fund, roughly.
Great, thanks, Howie. Any questions on Article 12?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous? Article 13, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be added to the fire truck capital reserve fund previously established. This appropriation is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0.
Have we voted on this already?
We haven't voted on any, I think we voted on 12. We haven't done any of the warrant articles yet.
Why does it say 9-0?
It says we recommended it already.
I'm sorry?
The write-up shows 9-0, but we haven't voted yet.
Oh, sorry.
It's just encouragement, right?
Yeah,
Is that a subliminal thing, trying to,
yeah,
It's left over from last year, sorry.
yeah?
The next truck we're going to have to replace is a heavy rescue, and Todd's assuming about $450,000 for that.
Do you know what we got in that one, Howie?
222,000.
222.
And he's looking at 20 or 21 for that as well.
Right, it's going to be 400,000.
Yeah.
Any more discussion on Article 13?
Moved, so moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your hand. Article 14, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be added to the Highway Heavy Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Appropriations recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. This one's been approved by the Budget Committee already. We'll skip that.
This was in the CIP that we worked on. We have to replace the grader down there. We figure up to $300,000 depending on what we, and so we're putting money away to replace the grader at the highway department.
I'm sorry, Kelly, I'm not picking on you.
That's okay. I'll tell you right now,
They're all going to have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't take the,
Well, I mean, yeah, Howie, how much do we have in there now, do you know?
78,000. These are all November numbers, by the way.
Right, I mean, well, you know, we've really, I mean, on the heavy equipment and stuff, we just got a brand-new excavator, brand-new loader. 2016, we spent $200,000 on a 10-wheeler. We just bought 2 more 10-wheelers for $418,000, and we just bought a 15-ton dump truck that's fully dressed with the 4-season sander and plows and all that. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I just, you know,
The grader we got, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly or Denny, but the grader we got used to begin with from the state, I think, years ago.
Yeah, supposedly the whole front end of this thing is shot bearing-wise, and we need, according to Brock, we need a new grader, and we can use it the way it is, but it's limping along. And the next one's going to be the same way with at the transfer station. We've got a loader down there that's missing 2 gears out of the 4. So we're putting money away to replace a loader at the same time. So
and he thinks he can get a brand-new grader for $200 to $250.
that wasn't the loader that we traded in on the new loader and the new excavator?
the loader we traded in was from the highway department.
Yeah.
When we get down here, that's the loader we've had at the transfer forever.
Right.
That's the one that's worth about $15,000, and it's like $25 to fix the gears in it. So we want to just limp along till it dies and then replace that.
I'm going to speak to
No,
that.
I don't want to skip ahead to the next article, but I mean, we traded that, we had that loader at the DPW that wasn't any good, and I think we got a $140,000 trade-in on that. So I mean, there must have been something left in it. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead to the next one, but, you know, I just with all the burden on the taxpayers this year, I mean, the increases in property values, increases in taxes, I mean, all the equipment, we spent almost $1 million probably in new equipment in the last 2 years for the DPW. I mean, is there any way we could cut that back a little bit?
I think if you look at the comparison I put in your packets in the very first page, the warrant articles, even with this warrant article, are down 11.35% from last year. And the operating budget, the amount to be raised by taxes, while the operating budget is up 8.33%, the amount to be raised by taxes is only up 0.07%.
Right.
So I think, I mean, the Budget Committee can vote to not support it, but the selectmen set the warrant, and they feel that it's necessary because we probably aren't going to get 5 more years out of that grader. and the loader has actually been taken out of service, which I'll speak to when you get to the next warrant article, but, you know, you can vote to not recommend it, certainly. But I think if you have a very good program, and always have, of putting the money away for when you need to purchase the item, and...
Well, yeah, I know, we got we got a page and a half or 2 pages of capital reserve funds, I understand that, but I mean, it's just so with all the burden on the taxpayers, it's just the idea to try and maybe, you know, just for the budget committee, I mean, that's fine. Just part of the discussion to try and maybe save taxpayers a few dollars, just a token.
We feel the same way, Jerry.
Right.
But we tried to cut this as much as we could, and there's some things we just thought we had to do just to keep these departments operating properly.
Okay, thanks, Denny, I appreciate it. Any more questions on Article 15?
14, are we on?
Oh, sorry. 14. Yeah, 14. See there, I wasn't going to do that, and I did. I should
You did.
14. Any more discussion on Article 14?
Nope. Move the article.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, raise your hand. I'm sorry? What'd you say?
I'll vote again.
Oh. Oh, anybody against it? Oh, one, okay. Sorry, I was on that 10 zip roll. Sorry about that. You, just let me know, James, or anybody, if you vote against it. We make sure we get that. Article 15, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be added to the transfer station heavy equipment capital reserve fund previously established. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0.
So the current loader at the transfer station is missing 2 gears, and we've taken it out of service to try to preserve its trade-in value. Brock has gotten a quote on a new loader for the transfer station at $113,000. He can get $13,000 for a trade-in on the one we have, as long as it's still got some gears left in it. So he's taken it out of service. He's going to rent a loader for $4,000 a month, 100% of which will go towards the purchase of the new one for the first 4 months. If we have to rent it for more than 4 months, then it's an 80-20 split where we get 80% and they get 20. And we are going to pay for the rental out of the maintenance and equipment maintenance and repair line item, where we put the money in case we needed a $20,000 transmission.
Okay.
So to do the math here quickly, it's $113,000 for a new loader. It's $16,000 to rent for 4 months, which would be 100% credit against the price, plus $13,000 for a trade-in. So the $13,000 for the trade-in brings you down to $100,000. The $16,000 brings you down to $84,000. We have $28,000 in that capital reserve fund, and we're asking for $75,000. So
Okay.
we'll have a little bit of a buffer in there as well. And I think Brock was pretty unique fix to this, because it's just, it was missing 1 gear, and now it's missing 2, and I think it only has 4, so.
You're running out.
It still has a little bit of value, and he's beaten these equipment guys up pretty well to get good prices, so.
Well, I mean, I'd say to get the 4 months of the rental to go toward the purchase price, that's a pretty good deal, I'd say.
Yep.
Thanks, Kelly. Any more comments on questions on Article 15?
Move the line.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, raise your hands. None opposed. Article 16, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be added to the invasive species expendable trust fund previously established. This appropriation is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. I guess this has always been, I mean, this is something that's worked out pretty well for us over the years.
Is this a lower amount than normal?
It is, less than what, so the ask last year was, I believe, 32,150. And that was the actual request from the lake associations. And this year, we have 6,000 in there, I think. Howie, can you help me?
4,700.
4,700 in there. And we had requests for more money this year. I attached the requests to your, you have them as...
Oh, okay.
So the original request, for example, from Bellew was 35,000. Their ask last year was 10. They've since reduced that down to 15. And Balch, theirs went up from 7,500 to 10,000. The ones that OWA represents have all stayed the same, and basically because of the tax situation this year, the selectmen have elected to set it at 30,000, use the 4,000 in the capital reserve fund, and keep it level funded for this year. And if you guys vote to support the warrant article, I will notify Balch and Bellew that they're only going to get what they got last year.
Same as last year, level funding with last year.
Okay, thank you.
Most of those funds for the other lakes goes for the Lake Coast program, which is trying to avoid having invasive species go into that.
Right. Because yeah, prevention is any more discussion on Article 16?
Move the article.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Article 17, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,000 to be added to the police cruiser capital reserve fund previously established. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. Now, is this for an SUV? Is that why these are a little bit more?
No, prices, it's just for the typical cruiser that we buy every year, Jerry. He just increased the price. Last year, I think it was $43,500, and he increased it. He thinks the price is going to go up on them, but it's the same kind of car we've been buying.
Great, thank you.
He wanted the command vehicle. We said he'd have to request that next year.
So there's a typo in here. It should be 45.
I thought it was 45 even.
It was 45 even.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
It's got 45.5 in here. I might have missed the other 500.
45,000 even.
Oh, okay.
So I changed the warrant articles when I had to add one. If you look at the handout that says warrant article 13, that's his, it's for 2000 Ford Police Interceptor Utility. And it includes everything to get it up and running. He's only got about $700, I think, in that account, so he had me rounded up to 45,000 from the 43.5.
Okay, so that's
And that's what
actually,
the selectmen voted on.
So what are we voting on?
so it's 45,000 that we're voting on, right?
Is that what we're voting on? 45?
45 even, yes.
45,000 even.
I'll move that article then.
Second.
Motion and a second on the police vehicle. All in favor, raise your hands. One opposed? Two opposed? 8-2. Did you guys have any questions on that?
My vote won't change. What happens to the revenue from police details? Does that just go in the general fund?
It goes.
It goes, the police have a fund for
It
it.
goes to pay for wages, New Hampshire retirement, the Medicare hospital insurance tax, everything that has to do with the detail to pay the guy. And then the cruiser part of it, he does periodically use it for things for the cruisers, cages, light bars, things like that. But there is a residual in the general fund that is more than the wages and benefit portion of the detail.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Moving on to Article 18. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,000 to be added to the Technology Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0.
So I don't know if you remember from when we did the budget, but we've moved the purchase of desktops and servers into a lease program. This is just for 3 laptops for all the 3 of the laptops for the selectmen and 3 laptops for the PD, I believe for the cruisers, are slated to be replaced this year, and they're not in the lease program.
Okay, so those laptops are almost $2,000 apiece?
Yeah, like 18 or 1900. By the time I think the ones for the police department are hardened. They're like, I don't know what they call them.
Oh, okay, so they would be like rough service. I mean,
they're heavy duty. They've got a name for them. I can't remember.
They're ruggedized.
Well, I mean, I've seen those. I've seen construction companies that have them. They're really pretty bulletproof.
And then we purchased the ones. We purchase everything through our IT people because they put in all the antivirus, they put all our email accounts, hook us up to the server. You know, none of us are qualified to go to Best Buy and buy a $400 laptop and program it with all the firewalls we have into our servers so that people can't get into our registration, and it's beyond any of our technical ability to do. So we buy them directly from them. They set them up. They make sure the firewalls are all in place. We don't touch our own server even ever. They create openings for Department of Motor Vehicles, and all of that is very well secured and dictated by the state.
Thanks, Kelly. Any more discussion on Article 18?
There's 2,700 in that fund right now.
27 now.
Move the line.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Raise your hands. One opposed. 9-1, Tony. Article 19, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Town Hall Improvement Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Appropriation is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0.
And what exactly are you planning, Kelly?
So this is the money to finish the work I need to do in the office in front of Tony's and Michelle's. We're trying to separate Tony and Michelle and create a more defined space. So I don't know if any of you have ever seen any of the Department of Labor's safety inspections, but they're trying to set up town halls so that people don't have direct access physically to all the offices. And so what I'd like to do is those 2 counters in that front office, I'm going to put them together and create a public entrance that you know, kind of is a physical barrier there. And people can come in and be waited on, and we'll provide them with the stuff they want. And then the back of the offices will become employee-only space and not open to the public. I had this inspection in 2 of the towns I worked in previously to this, and I'm not sure the Department of Labor would be too jazzed with the way we have it set up right now. So I'm trying to slowly do this. And we need separate heat and air conditioning in there because there's nothing in there now. We'll have to do data drops to make sure that her machine, right now we're running extension cords, and extension cords in a public building are not permissible under the fire codes. I mean, we need to put the floor plugs in so that computers can be plugged directly into the system, and those have to be hardened, so if you kick them or hit them, they don't start a fire. So it's basically to prepare that front office to take Michelle and separate those 2 offices.
So will you be moving that wall that's got the windows in it now, or is that going to be, I mean, is that area for the public going to be as large as it is now, or are you going to move the office space further out?
the wall's going to stay exactly the way it is, the windows are going to stay the way they are, the door in between will stay the way it is, but those two counters in that front office will be moved together. So the door on the side will become a means of egress only for Michelle, and that door that opens off the hallway will become the public access, and will create a little foyer there. And then those still be two counters, that's going to be the physical barrier, and they need to be 48 inches high. So we're going to make them bigger and then close them off so that people just come into that foyer and we wait on them at the counter. Similar to the tax collector in the town clerk's office,
Right.
where you have a counter and,
Do you know what's in there now, Howie, or do you have that, or?
Right now, they've got
8,000 in there.
Eight-
It's 9.
almost 9.
8,000. Any more discussion on Article 19?
Move the line.
Second?
Motion second, all in favor, raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Article 20, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $237,500 to be added to the highway construction project capital reserve fund previously established. It's recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. And a lot of what this is a few years ago, we had taken a lot of the maintenance out of the budget, out of the Public Works Department budget for a lot of these, for these projects, and moved it into this. What was that, 4, 5, 6 years ago we did that?
Yeah, it's had to be
Moved it
somewhere around
into-
there.
Yeah.
And the reason it came about is because one year, we were doing Main Street, and the asphalt plant shut down early, we couldn't finish it, so we had to put the money back in the budget again.
Right.
So that means we had to appropriate it twice. So.
Right, and we had the covers and stuff sticking up all winter long. Yeah, those are spectacle. Any discussion on Article 20?
Question, Kelly, Brock's going to go through a study with all the roads, town roads, and set up a plan?
Yeah, Stratford Regional, they met with the selectmen, and they're going to start the study this spring. And it's supposed to be pretty comprehensive as to, which roads have to be paved, which ones are going to skim and overlay, so forth, and which ones have to be maintained by retiring them and this. It's supposed to be done, their study, we've asked them to finish it before budget season next year, but it's going to be in the works this summer. And Kelly can fill you in on more, but my understanding is they're going to do all the paved roads, and not the gravel, but all the paved roads in town, not the highway,
Yeah.
the state highway, but all the town paved roads.
Right.
so the first part of this is just an inventory. So they're going to inventory all the paved roads and including culverts, catch basins, if you could tell where the water and sewer lines are. So we have a comprehensive overlay of inventory. And then the second piece of that, which may not be done for fall, will be the piece where they help us come up with a management plan. But I think you've heard even Lee Nichols last year talk about, paving isn't always the most cost-effective way to deal with this. Rather than letting the roads go and needing to repave them every 20 years, if we can inventory the roads and see what kind of work they need to be done, like in years 0 to 7, they don't need a lot of attention, but in years 7 to 15, if we crack seal them and skim coat them, then we can extend their life way beyond the 20-year cycle of repaving. And obviously, with the cost of materials and labor, it's in our best interest to do the least costly piece of maintenance to prolong its life. So it's between the roads and the bridges, those are our biggest asset. We think about the human resource piece because we look at that in the operating budget every year, but really roads and bridges are very costly to replace or repave or rebuild or even to maintain. So that's the whole point of the inventory is at no cost. It's part of our membership of being in Stratford Regional Planning Commission.
But what roads is he contemplating working on next year?
He has not given me the list yet. I really think that he kind of came in at the end of the year. He's had many, many equipment issues, and has been dealing with them, and then the plow season started earlier, and he was down a person. He's gotten the transfer station up and running and fully staffed, so I anticipate that he will have at least an idea for the budget public hearing and the deliberative session.
That's important, because people need to know what the 237,000 is going to be.
I think he's got some ideas,
And that should be pointed out, too, that's not for internal costs, that's for external cost. That, like, who did the paving on Pine River Pond Road? Can't remember who did it.
Was that just last year?
Yeah.
F.R. Carroll?
F.R. Carroll, yeah.
Right. I guess it's probably not possible, but it'd be nice to somehow have the water precinct involved in this process too, because it seems like it's inevitable when you fix a road, then it has to be dug up to put a water line or something. I mean, I guess if they had any big projects that they have planned for large sections, they could probably let Stratford Regional Planning know, but I mean, leaks, there's no way to really detect where those might happen, but...
Well, Jerry, it's not only the water lines. I mean, if we're talking about repaving a major road, we should be looking at the sewer lines too. So, what would be ideal is if we had an inventory of where everything is, and before we plan a major rebuild on the road, if we have the money and the resources to put in the sewer lines and the water lines, so we don't have to dig it up 3-4 years later like we've done on Hill Street here, so.
Well, I mean, that winds up happening, it seems like,
Yeah.
but...
that's our goal. I mean, that should be the town's goal, is to build the infrastructure when you're rebuilding the road. But
One thing we've never done here, and Brock and I have both talked about this, and it's included in the budget for this year, is we have a camera the sewer system. So in other towns I've worked in, we camera 20% of the system every year and find small, intermediate, and major issues and take care of the major ones and then work down to the intermediate. And the smaller ones, obviously, if you don't take care of them in 5 years, the small ones become the intermediate. And so we really want to start a camera program where we start cameraing the system, and that'll give us the information we need as well to know what the next piece that needs to be fixed would be. And the only other thing I want to say about warrant article 20 is there is offsetting revenue from the highway block grant, and this year we received $138,348. So there is some offsetting revenue from the state for that.
So roughly, did you say roughly 138,000 in offsetting revenue from the state?
138,348 is what we got, and obviously if the gas tax goes up, we get more.
So I don't know if we're hoping for that tax to go up or not, but...
Move the article.
Second. Second.
Motion and a second. So does that that money come back and directly affect this? I mean, when we were doing the gross base budgeting, remember we were doing the gross base budgeting for the warrant articles on the school, where we had actually added this might be unanticipated revenue though, right? I mean...
No, it's the highway block grant money comes in as a highway block grant. It's a little bit different than just dropping into the general fund, because we can maintain it for 1 extra year.
Right.
But if we don't spend it, which we always spend more than $138,000, so it's never questionable. But I think we've got $63,000 left from this year. Last year, you guys budgeted $250 for paving and overlay, and we thought with the $63,000 still left in there, that still puts us at over $300,000, so that was a good number to be able to pave and then have that offsetting revenue.
Right. And I just wondered if there would be a way to put it into the article so people knew that there would be, possibly up to $130,000 or up to $135,000 in offsetting revenue from the state on this, so that, so when they go in and they vote on it, they'd see that there was some offsetting revenue, and they'd say, well, it's not $240,000, it's going to wind up costing us $100,000.
It's shown as revenue in the operating budget. I can ask DRA if I'm allowed to put it, they're very particular about these warrant articles now, but if I'm allowed to put a notation in there, I don't mind doing it.
Well, I think it would help people to...
The thing is, I can only say what we got last year. I can't anticipate, because the highway block grant money comes to us in 4 quarterly payments. 2 are guaranteed, 2 are not. So you never know. I mean, I can say...
Well, you can check. I mean, just a thought. But I mean, if you could check, that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you. Dave?
Is this, if you're raising and appropriating 237, if the voters approve that, the highway money comes back, and doesn't that fall into the surplus then? This is where...
No, it is earmarked, it has to be earmarked only for highway projects, and it does not drop into surplus every year. It can be held, highway block grant money can be held one additional year. Again, we spend more than we ever take in highway block grant money, so there's no...
But then let's just to keep it simple, if the voters are taxed for 237 and you get 138 in round numbers, then you're actually accumulating tax funds.
No. No, because she has to offset the revenue. When you set the tax rate, tax rate's set by using revenue against the appropriation.
The 138 is already figured in?
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Setting
already
the tax
minused out.
base?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be, because that would be on the revenue.
Yeah,
right?
if you get, I gave you the draft MS 737, so if you look on page, so if you look at page, let's see, page 9 shows about a third of the way up from the bottom, the 138,348 that we got this year. And that gets minused out before the amount to be raised by taxes.
Right.
So it's not in the amount to be raised by taxes.
So you minus it out, but you're not sure that you're going to, these various funds, I mean, that 138, it comes in different grants, and so you're not really, it's...
So there's an amount we're guaranteed. 2 of the payments are guaranteed.
Guaranteed that.
So we're guaranteed about $85,000, and then the rest is a sliding scale on the gas tax and tolls and other things, so...
So you're guaranteed on part of it and pretty much guaranteed on the rest of it.
Right, and by September 1st, this is just for budgetary purposes. On September 1st, I have to file an MS 434R, which is a revised statement of revenue. So I go back and I look at all the revenue from the previous year for the whole year, and then I look at the revenue year-to-date through August 31st, and I send the Department of Revenue a new revenue number that gets minused out before we set the tax rate in October. So we get one more bite at the apple to make sure it's as accurate. Like this year, we're going to do probably 1.1 million in motor vehicle registrations. So, I upped that number in September.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't raising taxes for something we're getting a grant for anyway.
No, I'm very conservative about revenue because I don't want to not raise enough taxes to cover the budget, but I include all the revenue that is remotely possible as of September 1st, and then we set the tax rate in October.
All right, any more discussion on Article 20?
Move the line.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your hand. 10. Article 21, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be added to the Assessing Statistical Update Capital Reserve Fund previously established as recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0.
We're down to $229 because we just finished our 5 years and had to pay him for the reval for last year. Remember, this is a 5-year plan.
And if we do a field review again, we will need the closer to $50,000, but the Board of Selectmen, because of the other needs this year, cut that down to $5,000. And, if they have to do a couple years at $5,000, then up it to $12,000 the last 2 or 3 years, they'd rather do that than put it all in 1 year.
Thanks, Kelly.
Pretty accurate funding last year, only $228, $229 left in the trust fund.
Any more discussion on Article 21?
Move the article.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your hands. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be added to the Greater Wakefield Resource Center Building Capital Reserve Fund previously established, recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0. I think this was created a few years ago, too, to keep up with the, because we own that building down there, and we're responsible to take care. This is just another capital reserve fund that was started so that we can have some money in there if we need to do.
We got 9,600 in there right now, roughly.
I think at one time it was in the budget, and they couldn't really do much with it, so they wanted it in a capital reserve fund so that it could,
Well, my guess is someday we're gonna hit a roof.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they've got a roof out in like 5 years, and,
Yeah, I think so.
and, you know, there's I think the sidewalk needs some work, and we do have some operating money, I think 5,500 in for some stuff that needs to be done on the outside as well, you know, kind of safety things, so.
I think the parking lot needs attention too.
Yep,
Oh, that's right, I think it does.
Get discussed.
that came up.
Any more discussion on Article 22?
Move that article.
Second,
Motion and a second, all in favor? Raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Article 23, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $28,500 for the purpose of replacing the dugouts at the ball fields for the Parks and Recreation Department. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Section 6, and will not lapse until the dugouts are replaced or December 21st, 2020, whichever is earlier. This is appropriations recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0.
this came up at the CIP, and this is really a safety issue. We need to get those fixed before somebody gets hurt, seriously.
I saw some of the dugouts, it looked like the blocks of the concrete were cracking and the walls were kind of tipping and
Yep.
not exactly sure if they
The
had.
blocks are heaving up, and.
I don't know if they put enough frost protection under those when they put them in, or if they didn't,
I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not safe.
something drastically wrong with those.
The frost is pushing them up, and they don't want to go concrete this time. They want to do something that's going to be a little bit more movable.
Right, well, yeah, that would make sense. Any discussion on Article 23?
Move the line.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your hands. Article 24, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations. Now, does this reflect the change that we made?
Yes.
Okay. Not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately. The amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by a vote of the first session for the purpose set forth herein totaling $5,496,024. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $4,997,810, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law. Governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 6, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This appropriation is recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 3-0, and is recommended by the, well, we haven't recommended it yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
Maybe I should have stopped at the end of that other sentence. Where was that little kick in the shin that I needed?
You read too fast.
Well, I guess we had discussed the operating budget, and then we made the adjustments tonight, and this is accurate to,
To what we
Yeah, so the
approved.
little table I did for you in the front of your handout assumes that you approve the request that we asked for. So I gave you the gross operating budget for 17, 18, and 19, the default budget for 17, 18, 19, the amount to be raised by taxes, and then the warrant articles. The warrant articles are actually down $89,625, or 11.62%. And even though the gross operating budget is up 8.33%, the amount to be raised by taxes is only up 0.07%. So, you know, I think that the taxpayers deserve that after the assessed values and the rate and the bills this year. So hopefully, you know, I can't speak to the other political subdivisions, but our portion and our part is 27% of the tax rate. So it has an impact, but not as significantly as some others.
but, and that, so 0.07%, okay, so, and you know, I think that, for a second here, I mean, I think that this has been an incredible budget season, especially for the town side, because, I mean, I think everybody, we all remember that we had two selectmen, you know, we had two-thirds of the Board of Selectmen leave right at the beginning of budget season, and I mean, I think that, I mean, to Kelly's credit, she wanted to make sure to have three selectmen on the board to approve the budget, or to create the budget for us and meet with the department heads, and I mean, they were meeting at night, they were meeting in the afternoons. I think on election day, of course, one of the selectmen had to be present at the polls for the election in November, and if I'm not mistaken, I think during the elections, the selectmen were having a meeting to review the budget up on the stage. So I mean, you guys did a good job on the budget and stuff, but I think that I think you really did a great job under the circumstances you had to deal with, you know, to get it done as well as it was, and in a timely fashion. And I think that I think I can speak for everybody on the budget committee when I say that we appreciate all the effort that you put into that.
I just want to say, too, I included the MS 737, which will be the posted budget showing revenues, and I also included the default budget. The thing that's different this year is that we have to disclose the default budget, and you have to discuss it at the budget public hearing in the deliberative session, which is not something we normally talk about. The definition of the default budget has changed a little bit this year. It doesn't significantly impact us because we don't have collective bargaining agreements with contracts and things, but the gist of the default budget law says that it's last year's budget plus any contracts, and now it's changed to contracts have to have been approved at that last meeting, not ones that get approved in August or September, October, subsequent to this. And then minus any one-time expenditures. So you'll see when you're reviewing the default budget on the first page, I took out $3,686 from election and registration because last year we had 3 elections and this year we're only having 1. Excuse me. And then I removed $22,249 from personnel administration because we had 2 long-term employees retire last year who both had banked sick time from when we changed the earned time accumulation, and so that was a one-time payout. Those employees are gone and will never get paid out again. And just so that you know, we could not include the 4 months of the 3 new firefighters and them changing from a 12-hour shift to a 24-hour shift. That was not in last year's budget, because if you'll remember, when the budget passed, we made it effective May 1st. So they were only covered for 8 months of the year. So I can't add what wasn't in last year's budget. And I did get a ruling from DRA on that. The town attorney thought that because it was the intent of the people to cover us 24 hours and hire 3 new guys, that I could just put that in the default budget, but the answer is no.
Well, I mean, that's, I mean, those are obviously going to have to be reviewed at the town level, because when you send a default budget and everything to DRA, DRA is not going to go down through your line item budget and see what's there and what isn't, or what changed and what didn't. I mean, so that's going to ultimately...
No, but that's something that we now have to disclose. We're going to be the ones that will have to find the... You know, it's funny because you do so much work on the town hall. One of the examples that they used in that new one was, like, if you replace the windows in the town hall one year, well, that wouldn't be a recurring expense, so you couldn't put that into the default budget for the next year. I mean, and then people retiring and... Unless it's this building we've done 2 jobs and we still have about $50,000 worth of windows to replace, so the windows here are just the gift that keeps on giving. But yeah, normally if you place the windows, you get it all done, and I'm looking for a 3rd grant source for the rest of them, so. But I did want you to have these because we're going to be doing a budget public hearing on January 8th, and then obviously the deliberative session on February 2nd. We do have to, have a little bit more of a discussion than we have in previous years. So I just wanted to make sure you at least had a working copy of this for your review.
Well, we appreciate that. And the other thing too is, I mean, we always post. Tony knows. I'm pretty sure we did it last year, but we always have a budget meeting scheduled just prior to the public hearing. So any more discussion on Article 24?
Move the line.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, raise your hands. Is that 10? Article 25, this is a change, so they want to change the purpose of the transfer station heavy equipment capital reserve fund to purchase heavy equipment for the transfer station recycling center. Is this something that we have to vote on? I mean, it's not a...
It's not a money warrant article, so no, you don't have to vote on it, but if you have any questions about it.
Right. Well, to see if the town will vote to change the purpose of the transfer station heavy equipment capital reserve fund established Article 12 of the 2001 town warrant to purchase heavy equipment for the transfer station recycle center to transfer station equipment capital reserve fund for the purpose of purchasing equipment, including but not limited to heavy equipment for the transfer station recycle center, and furthermore name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend.
Just broadens the definition to include more equipment.
So we have a compactor down there, we have trailers, we have roll-offs, we have other equipment that if there's some subsidiary, like right now, we definitely need a loader, and that's heavy equipment. But there's other equipment down there that, you know, if there's $8,000 in there and we need a trailer, we'd like them to be able to purchase it if they need it. The compactor will need to be replaced someday. Rather than start another transfer station equipment capital reserve fund and have one heavy and one just equipment, I just thought it would be cleaner to change the purpose, and we can just roll money into there each year, and we'll tell the budget committee, disclose each year of what the thing is that needs to be purchased that year.
Thank you, Kelly. Any, I guess not much discussion, excuse me, on that. 26, see if the town will vote to modify the provisions of RSA 7239A for elderly exemption from property tax in the town of Wakefield based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers to be as follows. Did this come from that petition article?
No.
No, this was the assessors, I think, had.
You're looking at it. I started this in 2006.
I knew it was somebody that I knew.
When we haven't changed the numbers of the exemption for the elderly in terms of property tax exemption, the dollars. Then talking to Cindy, if it were to go to the new numbers you see in that warrant article, the dollar impact, and I don't remember, I don't have it in front of me, it wasn't very much, 20-something thousand.
Less than that.
Less than that.
Excuse me. We only have 18 people right now
18.
that have applied and qualified for elderly exemptions.
We had more.
We had it broken down by, you know, each age group, but it was I think $10,000 or $12,000. And the reason that we decided to do it this year is because the assessed values generally went up 21%, and the people that we really don't want to see impacted by this, I mean, I don't want to see any taxpayer paying, you know, being burdened by their taxes, but especially the elderly who are on a fixed income, they are not going to get a 21% increase in their Social Security checks or their pensions or their 401k. So we thought it was incumbent on us to make sure that people aren't losing their homes just because the assessed values have increased.
We did have one time, Jerry, a lot more participants. However, many of them passed away. This came up when I was doing taxes. I figured this out. Of course, there is another option that the elderly have, too, and that's to defer their taxes. And actually, in my mind, that's probably a better way because it saves them more money, gives them more money up front. But
The only problem with the disabled and elderly deferral is it creates a lien on the property, and a lot of elderly people won't.
Yeah.
The disabled deferral, disabled and elderly deferral works kind of like a reverse mortgage, where they can defer their taxes up to 80% of their assessed value for their whole lifetime. And then if they choose to sell or they pass away, their heirs have 9 months to pay off the lien or sell the place and make it good. So I've actually seen people use it in other towns. It's not being used here, but it is another tool for the elderly to keep them in their homes and not have their taxes be a hardship.
Thank you.
again, it's been 2006 the last time we set those rates, so.
Okay, I think we covered all those. There's probably nothing on Article 27
This was something the town clerk asked me to put in. I think they've been allowed to not charge Purple Heart recipients for Purple Heart license plates, but now they wanted a warrant article on here where the town has authorized them to, if they're proven that they were prisoners of war during certain things and for 30 days or more. So this is something that all the town clerks are going to be asking the town to put on their warrant.
Great, thanks, Kelly. It looks like we got everything on those, right, Tony? Everything we need for those articles, warrant articles? So we got everything we need on the warrant articles, right? You're all... I wonder if it'd be possible to take like a brief recess. Would that be all right with everybody if we could just... we say 5 minutes, but it may wind up being 7 or 8 or 15. Okay, so everybody ready to... Yep. We ready to proceed? I don't have a gavel.
That works.
That works. Thanks for that suggestion, Howie. Did everybody get the copies of the school warrant articles? Let's just see. Oh, this is going to be
They look like this.
2.
They look like this. I have a few extra.
These are
I
all.
do.
These are all
Right.
money ones, right? We
Yes.
don't have any, so we don't
No,
have to skip
don't.
any. And okay, I guess we're set to proceed here with. Start with Article 2. Shall the Wakefield School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Wakefield School Board and Wakefield Education Association teachers, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over the paid amount in the prior fiscal year. 2019 and 20 is $137,587. 2020 and 2021 is $114,545. 21-22 is $119,649. And further to appropriate the sum of $137,587 for the upcoming fiscal year 2019-2020 school year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits over those appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal school year. So this, what was the school board's recommendation on this? It's blank.
5-0. And all of them are 5-0 going forward.
Okay, thank you.
5-0, yes, all of it going forward is 5-0.
Okay, any discussion on Article 2?
What is we still have the same, we still get the same health insurance, the Cadillac plan?
Actually, we do, and it did actually go down this year. However, in the contract, we have created a committee with the teachers to evaluate insurance policies going forward. And we did a 50-50 with the excise tax if it should happen. But
it's still a Cadillac plan, by definition.
yes, but in this contract, it will agreed upon, but will be changed. Both parties want to see it changed.
Oh, going forward, next year?
Yes.
3 years from now.
So if there is a tax...
3 years from now or next year?
Actually, starting this year, starting this year, they're going to evaluate, and it will be amended into this contract.
Amended, okay.
It will, starting in January, it will be, we will meet, we have a committee, 3 teachers, 3 admin, and it will be amended into to the contract that was just negotiated. A new potential insurance policies.
So if there is a Cadillac plan tax, it'll be split 50/50 on
Yes,
on
it'll
that?
be
Okay,
split
that's what
50/50, but we're looking for more consumer-driven plans.
Right,
going
to try and
forward.
stay underneath, stay below the threshold.
Yes.
Thank you.
It doesn't work for either to have the costs so high. It offsets even potential income that can be made. So it's beneficial to both to look for more consumer-driven plans.
It's also more saleable to the public, I think, too, Trace.
Thanks.
What is the average increase in the steps?
The average increase of the steps is 1.6, but that is not negotiated by us. That is a table that was
To the
existing.
table. And then the average increase above that?
2.5. That's what it is. It's a flat 2.5.
What was that increase?
2.5,
Plus a step of what?
1.6.
You might be able to pull that.
Sure, that's helpful.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you get that a little closer to you,
Is
that'd be
that better?
great.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
And if anybody over there, if I misspeak, please let me know.
You know, when most of the country is experiencing a 3% inflation and a 3% salary increase, and the town is getting a 3%, why are we recommending a 4% for the teachers? I don't understand that extra percent.
When we started the process, we evaluated what the other towns around us are getting, and we discovered that Wakefield is actually very much middle of the road. We're not high, we're not low. Some areas we are lower, but, and everybody has similar steps, and they're getting a 2.5% or greater increase, and we do not want to be left behind. It is too hard to dig out when you're behind in salaries. So in order to remain competitive and to continue to get good educators, our goal was to maintain the average middle-of-the-road salary for our teachers in Wakefield.
Well, are you saying the average teachers in this area are getting a 4% increase?
I think we negotiated our 2.5% increase. I believe it keeps us middle of the road, yes. But I would, we did quite a bit of extensive research, and in order to maintain the salaries of our teachers here in Wakefield and not fall behind, this is what was necessary to do.
Well, let me ask it a different, are we maintaining or are we increasing the salaries?
Now we're maintaining.
So the other towns, if I call around and go down to Middleton and Farmington and all
A lot of them
around
are
here, they're
higher
going to
than
say
our-
that they also got a 4%?
Well, I don't know if they got a 4%, but they were already higher than we are. So in order just to maintain competitiveness with the schools around us, this increase of 2.5%, they all have built-in steps as well.
They all have comparative plans, health plans. Are we apples for apples on everything else? I mean, because maybe Wakefield's getting a better, health plan than another town, or I don't know what all of the...
Right. I have the contract right in here.
If I could just interrupt, could we get Elizabeth a microphone so we can hear her a little bit better?
It varies spot to spot. Most towns' professional development is better than ours. We do not have stipends for after-school programs that are competitive. Most everything we are either middle of the road or slightly below is what our committee came up with. And I do have, may I ask, I have a...
I'm sorry. Oh,
We are not very competitive, particularly in the lower end of our salary schedule. Almost all the districts offer considerably more than we do. And when the salary schedule is implemented, there is actually one on that's quite better than there is on the other. And so we can stay competitive. It isn't that anybody's getting competitive, particularly in the lower
Thank you. Is that a wireless mic that we could get, or if Christine has something to, so people will be able to, Joe, is that a wireless mic on there? It must be, isn't it? Could you just give that to Christine so that if she, when we, well, because I mean, we have trouble hearing you, but people that, if people are watching it on TV, they won't hear you at all, so.
Is
It's on.
this better?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't hear.
Priscilla, did you, sorry, what?
As far as the rest of the contract, the only other cost items are we raised about $2,000 for after-school programs and a little bit for professional development to keep it competitive. But cost items really were focused on salary to keep competitive. It is not spread out anywhere else through the contract.
But did you compare
Yes.
the other the other benefits to other towns as well?
Yes, we had a chart, everything was compared, made sure that we stayed right in the middle. It was just, we found too difficult to climb out, and that's where we are. So
That chart would be something that we might want to have. Priscilla, did you have a question?
What was the last increase, do you know, from the last CBA?
the last what?
The last increases from the last CBAs?
I do not know that. I know, does,
Were there any language changes?
well, the insurance, which I talked about, which we set up a committee, I believe, 45 minutes for planning time, which was a change of about 3 or 4 minutes. They are required for, this was an issue because for 4 evenings a year, there's maybe a small stipend, but there are no, the only one who really wants to do more than 4 is our music teacher, and he really wants to put on some pageants. So, and I told you about the professional development, the insurance, in addition, starting January 1, an adjustment for a high-cost plan will be 50%, will be shared by the teachers as well. Perfect attendance, that pretty much stayed the same. Co-curricular, we increased it by 2,000, and honestly, that's pretty much it. Is there something that you had in mind, Priscilla, that?
No, I just wondered, quite often there's language changes that make a big impact, and it doesn't sound like there's a big impact on those.
No.
But I know these, I don't recall because I don't have the paper, but I know these figures are a lot higher than the one from last time, and that was quite a jump from the time before.
I guess if the numbers just keep getting larger, it's 2.5%. I mean, 1% of the Dow in 2006 is much different than it is now. But that is what it is. It was exactly 2.5%.
Yes.
Excluding retirements, you know what the average annual turnover rate is for teachers in Wakefield?
Gavin, it was brought to our table. It wasn't significantly high. It was, I think we've had, what was it, 5 in the last?
Mike?
Do you still have the microphone?
Mike?
Mike? Do you still have the microphone over there, Christina?
Pass it to Jerry.
Who has the?
1 or 2 a year.
Do you do exit interviews as to say why they're leaving or going maybe to another district, or?
We generally know why they're leaving, and it generally is for a higher salary someplace.
So what would you say the average tenure of a employee in Wakefield School District is on average?
I'm going to ask Mr. Gregoire again, this being only my 2nd year. What would you say the average is?
I'd have to look at that. I wouldn't want to give you a number and be completely off. We have some teachers who have been there 35 years, and we have some who've left after 2 or 3 years. So it's hard for me to give an average without looking formally.
Thank you.
No.
Article 2, were there any more questions, discussion on Article 2?
Jerry, I still
Yes.
don't understand the changes that the school is anticipating to make to the teacher's insurance contract. Could we get some more information on that? I understand what the teachers are getting now and is how we refer to as a Cadillac plan, but if we intend to change that, how much are we going to change it by, what direction are we going, and how big of an adjustment are you anticipating to make?
Let's see here.
Are we still, what do we pay, 80?
Anybody, I mean, I'm asking this to the school board or to anybody that wants to answer is fine, but could you give us an indication? I mean, because that's been kind of a sore point with the budget committee for a long time. I'd like to know if we're making any progress, or is it status quo, or where are we going?
Well, we're definitely going to share the excise tax with them at 50%, if there is one. And I'm sorry that I cannot find the correct.
Chris, do you want to?
Yeah. Can you just repeat, you're looking for how we are increasing the salaries for our teachers so that we can keep them? No.
No, I'm asking about insurance.
The committee.
We know what the current insurance program is for the teachers.
The healthcare
insurance. If we're going
insurance.
to change that, what is your goal? How much are you going to try to reduce it? How much are they going to pick up? What's your change in if you're going to have a committee, what's the goal of the committee?
The goal of the committee is to look at consumer-driven plans so that the percentage that both the teachers and the district is paying would be reduced, and we would eliminate any Cadillac tax that might occur in the next couple of years. I believe it doesn't kick in next year, it kicks in the year after. So we're looking at a consumer-driven plan that will save both the district and the teachers on the premiums of that plan, and so that we can avoid the Cadillac tax, which kicks in not next year but the year after. Is that?
Well, I think maybe one of the questions that, to make it, for at least from my standpoint, I was wondering if you were going to try to reallocate how you
the percentages?
Yes, and how each, whether a family plan, is receiving more money than a single person, if you're going to equalize that within your...
Is one of those the goals? Right now, the district picks up 82.5%, and if we could decrease that by decreasing the premiums, there was no discussion around a goal being that we would pay more for a single or less than a family.
Is that anything you've discussed looking at, or is that not been a subject that's come up?
It did not come up during the process by which the contract was, only that we would put together a group that would look at exactly what I said, which is a plan that would reduce premiums on both sides and avoid the Cadillac tax. Those are the goals.
So let me ask it a different way. Your goal, as I understand it, is to modify the insurance program to avoid a Cadillac penalty. If the Cadillac penalty goes away and the government changes that, does that mean you wouldn't change your insurance plan?
No, that doesn't necessarily mean that, because going to a consumer-driven plan would benefit both the districts and the teachers in terms of what the premiums would cost on both sides, whether there's a Cadillac tax or not.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
And either the last CBA or the one before it, that exact thing was, they were supposed to set up a group that were going to discuss this to try to bring the cost down. That obviously didn't happen.
And again, lacking the history, so there was a group that did not come to a conclusion.
I don't think they even met. They talked about meeting and lowering the, and I don't think they ever even met.
Oh, this group will meet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions or discussion on Article 2? Would anybody like to make a motion on the $137,587 for the year 2019-20?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, a motion?
I'll second.
Motion and a
So
second?
we've got further discussion.
Sure. What?
I mean, I understand what they're trying to do to play catch up with the other districts around us, but it is pretty hefty. But I was all set to vote no on this CBA because of the health insurance. I have been hounding that for the last 2 CBAs, so that's 6 years. Right, so, however, I'll give one more chance, and I better hear something next year at the Budget Committee.
Any more discussion on Article 2? And these are, again, we have to have a show of hands so that Deb can get the count. So all in favor, raise your hands. And opposed? Is that 7 to, I'm sorry, 7 to, oh. Is that what it was, 5 and 5? Thank you. Moving on to Article 3. Shall the Wakefield School District, if Article 2 is defeated, authorize the school board to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 2 costs only? School board recommends this by a vote of 5-0. And I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. It's usually the article that follows the initial one, I think, every year. So, was there any discussion?
It was out the last one, I think, because we had to go back and do exactly this with the para agreement, and it was quite costly, so they decided to leave it out a couple of years ago, but it's back in.
Okay.
We had to go to court, too.
Was that over that?
It was over the para agreement. Then we had to have the same results happen when people came back to vote, but it was very costly.
Any more discussion on Article 2 before Article 3 before we weigh in on that? Anybody have anything to say about Article 3? Sure, let's go. Help me out. Get that done or not?
Just did.
Okay. Should we move on to Article 4 and leave that one blank, or what?
We got to vote on it.
Okay. Don't want to make a motion? All in favor, raise your hands. 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 4? 6 to 4, Deb?
It was costly.
I know it was very costly.
Can you do that again, please?
Which one?
Who voted in favor of Article 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So then would be 5 and 5, right?
5 and 5.
Article 4. I'm sorry? 5 and 5. 5, 4, 5. 5 in favor and 5 opposed. We still have 10 members, right?
No, they don't.
Have you seen?
I think they finished it.
We don't have, we don't have any numbers on this.
Are you still negotiating para?
We are, and we are continuing the deadline of January 8th.
We're still in negotiations.
January 8th, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I guess we'll skip Article 4.
Skip Article 5?
Skip
Yep.
Article 5.
Yeah, that's the same thing here.
Article 6, shall the Wakefield School District vote to raise up to the sum of $200,000 for the purpose of reducing the general fund deficit pursuant to RSA 194:3, Section B, Roman numeral 5. Now, those are extra letters after that, right? That question mark and the period, those are like typos?
Well, it's a question, shall we raise?
Oh, okay.
Is this like a contingency fund?
This would be expenses.
Mike?
This would be if our expenses this year look like they're going to exceed our appropriation. We are, again, in a tight budget, and we're looking at the possibility, just like we did last year, that we're going to be close, but may finish in the red or the black, depending upon how the next 6 months go.
I'm sorry, did you, what kind of threw me was the general fund deficit. I mean, we're not allowed, the state and the federal government can do deficit spending. We have to, we're not allowed to do any of the deficit spending. But so I guess what you're saying is if you want to put $200,000 in here in case the budget happens to come up short at the end of the year. And,
you are correct.
Right, yeah.
Do we expect that to happen? I think it's going to be close again, the same as it was last year. And the plan last year, thank goodness we did not have to use, and we finished slightly in the black. I believe that we're going to be facing the same thing this year. So this is our plan for if that should happen, thinking that...
Even including the, what was it, 10%, right? The 10% rule, I mean, because you can...
I believe it's illegal after 10%. I believe it's actually, but we cannot overexpend our appropriation. So this would be, if we're that close again, a plan, if that should happen.
Would this be money that just gets, that you could just use, arbitrarily use if...
No, this would only be money if we were in the position where we couldn't meet our expenses with our appropriation. We can't
What
just
you've been
decide.
budgeted.
We can't just decide, well, we want to use some of it and have a fund balance. It would be if we can't.
But last year, if you were going to overexpend, didn't you have to go to the budget committee, the DRA and the...
Yes.
And then have a special...
Yes, but the reason was we knew that there would be a fund balance, and that was because of the split from SAU 64, and we knew there was going to be a fund balance. This year, we don't see that possibility of having a fund balance.
Gotcha.
And so this is the only way we would be able to cover it under that circumstance.
Hey, just 1 second. So that 194.3B says, school districts may vote at any annual meeting to raise such sums of money as the voters judge necessary for the purpose of reducing an accumulated general fund deficit.
Correct.
So, I mean, this wouldn't be, we wouldn't be creating a capital reserve fund or anything, or putting this money into a capital reserve fund. It's just, an extra pile of money in case you run
That's
short.
correct.
Oh, to keep from having to go through another process like you would have had to do last year.
Yes,
It could be expensive.
we're doing it in March because we don't expect that we can use that other process because we don't expect we're going to have a fund balance this year. It's going to be really close.
Gotcha.
So, just...
I'm sorry, you know what, Tracy, I didn't, go ahead.
As you know, that we started off the budget with 6% in the hole due to some of the errors that were in the current year's budget. So the current encumbered balance is in the negative $122,000. Last year, we were on a budget freeze in order to make it to where we had $30,000, I believe it was was what we had in the budget at the end. And we are currently, in December, in the negative of 122. So obviously, yes, we can overspend, so we'll be starting a budget freeze probably, or going forward. I'm not really sure if we will or not, but we will be addressing the fact that the encumbered balance is negative $122,000 currently.
Thank you, Tracy. Yes.
The way this is worded, we're going to have to raise and appropriate a full $200,000, right?
Right.
Even if school spends $5,000, we have to raise and appropriate $200,000.
Right.
Whatever the budget is, we have to add $200,000 to it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if we're going to...
Do I have that right? No matter what the budget comes out at, this article right here, it says we add $200,000 to it. Even if we don't spend it, we add $200,000 of the budget.
Right.
We have to raise and appropriate and tax it.
But they don't get to keep it.
No, I'm not talking, I'm talking about the
Okay.
impact on the taxpayers. This is $200,000. Do I have that right?
Right, yes, yes. Well, I mean, because these are, all these warrant articles are over and above what's on the budget. I mean, it's going to be whatever the bottom line of the budget is, plus any one of these or all of these that get approved.
No,
will be
I understand that, Jack.
added to it. But, yeah, you're going to be raising and appropriating.
Yeah, my only question is that we have to raise and appropriate a full 200,000. Even if you only spend 5 of it, it's 200,000 on the tax bill going out to the citizens.
Right, it's like an insurance policy in a way, I guess, probably, sort of. Just 1 second. I think James or Charlie had a question. James had a question?
Do you feel this is circumventing the process by developing a budget, then saying, hey, we can't stick to that budget, so we need to put in a contingency in it? Like Denny said, it's now we're raising an extra 200,000. Taxpayers have to fund it whether you use it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets impacted this year, even though
Yes,
it might be returned.
Yes, it would impact because it would be figured in, with DRA would use that as part of the formula to...
Obviously, we have a general fund or a designated fund balance, but again, the other department heads are, I'm pretty sure more, I want to say not sure, particular on maintaining your budget, but again, we don't set aside extra money in case they run over the town budget.
That's correct. Howie, did you have a...
Yeah, I just need clarification. Timing. This is for the 2019-2020 school district, correct?
Yes, this year. Can
Yeah.
Okay, so we ran this by the DRA, and we ran this by our attorney. So this is to raise and appropriate money, you're correct, but the taxes don't get set until November. So if the money is not necessary come November, the additional funds will not be raised through taxes.
That was going to be my point. It's not for July of 2020.
No, it's
for July of 2019.
Where does it say that?
It doesn't say it, but that's my confusion.
Shouldn't
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Priscilla.
No, I interrupted.
Am I correct?
Yes, we're trying to be proactive.
For this year's budget?
This current
The
year.
2018-2019 budget?
Yes. And the funds would be raised and appropriated in November when the tax rate is set, if it's necessary. That's why it says up to 200,000. At this point in time, we're not going to know if that's going to be the case. So if it's not necessary, the taxes will not be raised. So we're not going to artificially increase the tax rate unless it's necessary.
I did not read the bill, Jerry.
How do you know?
Under the old, I'm going back 15 years, how many years it was, if a governing body wanted to exceed the budget or found it necessary to exceed the budget, they had to come to the budget committee and then to DRA to get extra monies. Good example, we had a boiler that blew down at Greater Wakefield Resource Center. Wasn't anybody's budget. We had to replace it. It was in the middle of winter. We approved it, DRA approved it. It was approved as an overage to their existing approved budget. Does this supplant that process?
Well, I mean, yeah, I remember we did the boiler. We had some money set aside, I thought.
No, that was additional funds.
Had to come out of the town budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the hearing, and we went through that process.
Going through this process, going through this process at this point in time, we're presenting it to the budget committee as we would have to do,
Okay.
as you did in the past.
But not for a specific purpose. Before it was for a specific purpose.
Well, this is for a purpose also, anticipated.
But you can't give me a dollar amount.
That's why.
No, that's what I'm saying.
We cannot at this point. We can, we can run at the end, the year-end report, we can show a deficit appropriation which would be carried over.
Yeah.
And then then we would have to come forward to ask for money to raise taxes to
Offset that deficit.
Yes.
I think it's got to have more explanation here for the voters.
I think so, too.
This really doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything about it happening for this budget.
And I think that's critical. I think it's critical that you tell the people where it's your thought it's going to have to be used. It's not for the budget we just went through. It's for the budget that's currently running. So I think it needs some more wording.
Maybe a note, at least a note underneath it.
or something.
Well, I mean, I think that just, Frank, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead, you haven't weighed in yet.
Can you explain again why we can't use the normal budgetary additional funds request process? I didn't quite catch that.
Could you repeat it?
Can you explain again why we can't use the normal process for requesting additional budgetary funds via a budget meeting or a school board budget request?
The way we did last year, you mean?
Right.
Right. When we anticipate that we may overexpend because of unforeseen circumstances, it isn't just, we're going to spend more than the voters appropriated. There has to be a good reason that there were unforeseen circumstances to do that. What the process is if you can identify revenue that will cover that anticipated over expenditure, then you petition the Budget Committee, the DRA, and the Commissioner of Education to use that identified revenue that you have to cover it. We had that last year because when Wakefield split from Milton, there was money that came to us, I think it was $223,000 as an unanticipated revenue. So last year we were able to say, in the event that we had unforeseen expenses, and we identified those as an overrun in tuition, and also there was an overrun in transportation because we had to hire drivers. So we had specific reasons why we were overexpended in two areas. And so what we were able to do is to say, because we had these over-expenditures, it's possible we may exceed our appropriation, and we have identified a source of revenue to cover that, and we would have gone through that process. We didn't have to. We wound up slightly in the black. This year, there is no unanticipated revenue that I can point to that we are going to have at the end of this year. There just isn't any.
So if I understand it correctly, it's more for reallocating already identified sources as opposed to asking for additional resources? Is that what that means by identify sources, or?
Right. If I thought we had additional Medicaid money coming in or something like that, that we didn't actually book as a revenue against our budget this year, then I could go through the process that we went through last year.
Thank you.
But I can't. And it would only be if we could identify unanticipated expenses. Right now, those unanticipated expenses are largely in special education. And it is possible that we could possibly use that expendable trust if that covered our expenses. But we don't know what the second half of the year is going to bring. And our budget is so tight, and we saw an expense report today that said we are $122,000 in the red. By the way, that was through very aggressive encumbrances. So we hope that position gets better and comes to zero as we see whether or not all those aggressive encumbrances that we made around fuel and the like actually would, materialize, or whether we're going to be able to come back up to zero and wind up in the black. So this is just, if we identify those unanticipated expenses, this is the process we would have to use this year in order to cover that deficit.
Well, Chris, what's really confusing to me is that we got 16 articles here,
right,
all dealing with calendar or fiscal year 19 and 20, and then right in the middle of it, one pops up for 18-19.
Right.
Without any explanation to anybody that's going to be going in the voting booth, and I think most of us don't understand. We've never seen this before. This, to me, is absolutely confusing, not only the Budget Committee, but to the taxpayers. It doesn't make sense. Maybe you have it in the very beginning or at the very end, and you tell everybody what it's for, but when I read this, and everybody's going to do the same thing, to me, this is calendar or school year 19 and 20.
But this is great feedback for us. This is why we're here listening to what you're recommending to us. And I agree, this needs a note or a reword or some way that the taxpayers can understand what it is that we're asking for.
So would, Tracy, yes.
We're in this position. Last year, there was no increase for the school budget. It came at $50,000. There was zero and $50,000. And then On top of that, there were some pretty significant errors in insurance for family plans at $24,000 per piece is 100, and we were off considerably in tuition for Spalding on a budget that has no cushion and no increase. So it isn't that there's a spending spree of any kind whatsoever going on. It was a zero increase on a $9 million budget, and it's very difficult. It is very difficult to proceed to go forward. We have no cushion, and that maybe it should have been phrased better, but we are trying to be fiscally responsible and let you know that it is very, very tight and very, very close.
I think there was a less than 1% increase. We all appreciate that. But the thing I'm wondering is, I mean, the confusing aspect of it is where it pops up, like was mentioned, but the thing is, we've always been led to believe that you have a bottom line budget and you can't overspend the bottom line of the budget. So are you saying that this would allow you to overspend your bottom line budget by up to the $200,000 that you are appropriating or asking to be appropriated here?
If there were unanticipated expenses that could not be covered, yes, in the original appropriation.
Yeah, Howie.
Well, we do have 105,000 in the SPED trust fund, so those funds can be used if SPED was the cause of the problem.
There are some unanticipated out-of-district placements that we've had this year where we could use that money.
Well, I'm just saying that's,
Correct.
So I guess my thought would be, if that's where we think, in all likelihood, some of the larger numbers are going to come from, take it out of there and reduce that dollar amount. I mean, just my thought. Because we've also got another warrant article in here to increase that. And I think that's correct, by the way. I'm a firm believer in that, because I think we had I heard of a situation down in Stratham where they went through $250,000 in a trust fund with one student.
Well, I mean, I looked at this, and I haven't really had time to, I looked up the RSA, but I haven't really had time to research this, completely myself. I mean, it would have been nice if we had it 2 weeks or a month ago.
Would like to say something.
So, Ann Kibler, Director of Student Services, just so that you're aware, when we entered the school year, July 1st, we had 5 unanticipated out-of-districts, and we had 2 unanticipated ABA tutors. So the board hasn't told me to freeze my budget, but we're not spending money in special ed right now. And we are looking at special ed being in the deficit about $257,000.
So you do need that as well. Yeah. Because you can't, that's the situation, you can't not spend. You don't have a choice.
Well,
Out-of-district placements, they could be $100,000 or more per out-of-district placement.
when was the last time we had one of those?
It was about 5.
5 years ago?
Yeah. It seems to go in cycles.
In Wakefield, this is the first, I've been here 6 years or 7? 6. This is the first year we've had this amount of unanticipated costs in special ed.
It's happened in the past, yeah.
Thank you.
Been on budget committee too long.
Any more discussion on Article 6?
Do we vote on something that we're not happy with the wording?
I would like to see the new wording before. We got a couple other we got to vote on anyway, so.
Can we just send this back to them?
Yeah, with some new wording.
Well, I guess maybe the placement or the wording or some explanation. I mean, I don't know, Denny mentioned or somebody mentioned having it, we're reviewing a 2019, 2020 budget, and this is a kind of a throwback to last year. I'm not sure. I've never run into this, and I haven't had an opportunity to research this on my own, so.
I just know I'm not going to vote on it at all, one way or another, because there's not enough information.
All right, well, we'll skip that then. So does anybody, all right, well, that's fine. We'll just skip that one.
Whatever else.
I'd like to thank.
Does anybody have any?
Thank the Budget Committee to bring this to our attention. just want you to know that I have submitted this information to the DRA on the portal, and they're in the process of reviewing it. So the DRA is very specific, as the town administrator also specified, on how the wording is on warrant articles. So sometimes it's out of our control. So
But you can put a note on, though.
I can put a note on it, and they will review it. So I will be doing that. Thank you.
Well, they wouldn't be reviewing it in this form. I mean, you didn't send them this like that? Okay.
Yes,
That's fine.
yes. What you see here is what was put, is sitting on,
Great,
is what's
great.
on the portal.
Great. And that
It's sitting to be reviewed. It takes time for them to get back to you.
Yeah, they're pretty busy this time of the year.
Can I make a motion to table this article?
Well, sure. I mean, and the school board approved this by a vote of 5-0?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we can come back, and I don't know if we'll have another meeting for this, but we have a meeting scheduled just before our public hearing, so if it's something you could get to us, as soon as you hear something, so that we can have an opportunity to. I hate getting this stuff at the last minute. We don't have time we have a year-long budget and a year's worth of information, and you guys give it to us 2 days before a meeting, and we're expected to research it and understand it and comprehend it and inform the voters about it. And I mean, I think that's that's kind of yeah. Anyway, Article 7.
Did we get a second on my motion?
Oh, did we?
We table it or just wait
Table it?
until the
Yeah,
next
did you have a
meeting?
question, James?
I seconded it.
Oh, James going to second that? We can.
What's that mean?
I made a motion to table it.
And James seconded it.
Oh, he seconded it, okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Got it, Deb? Okay, Article 7, we can skip over that. Let's see. There we go. Article 8. Shall the Wakefield School District vote to establish a window expendable trust fund per RSA 198:20, Section C, Roman numeral 1, for the purpose of replacing, repairing, and maintaining the windows at the Paul School, and raise and appropriate the sum of up to $200,000 to be placed in the fund, and further designate the school board as agents to expend? And this was apparently approved by the...
I have a comment on that.
Can I finish what I'm saying?
I'm sorry.
As soon as school board approved this by a vote of 5-0. Yes, thank you.
So the next 2 warrant articles, it was brought to my attention that it's, the word "up to" is eliminated. That has to come out. So it's to raise and appropriate the sum of $200,000, not up to.
Correct. I
Up
was
to.
going to ask about that because they
Yes,
usually...
So it's the same with the next warrant article. I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, thank you.
Are we on this one?
8, yeah,
We're on 8.
but there's 200, yeah. She was trying to.
Ones between 4 and 8 were related to 4. What?
So Article 8, now, didn't we do something with
No.
windows? Did we have a...
No, we
Didn't we
didn't.
have a maintenance,
It's for
capital
windows.
reserve fund, a maintenance expendable trust fund? That we
Windows has never been in it.
Windows has never been in it.
Right.
Windows hasn't been in the...
Heck.
No, we were using the asbestos one because there was asbestos in the windows.
The caulking had asbestos in it.
Caulking had
Did we run out of those? Did we finish those windows that had asbestos in the caulking, so we can't use the...
I believe we did, but I'm going to defer to Jerry or Joe. I believe we did, but they're...
Jerry, can I interrupt for a minute? My Article 8 says $200,000 for transportation. Article 15 says 200 for windows. Did you skip a page?
Oh,
No. Are we on different pages here?
We're on page 3 of 4, Article 8 at the top of
My
the...
Article 8 says $200,000 for school transportation.
No, mine says window.
That says windows.
I think mine's okay.
Okay, maybe, I just have a bad...
Did you get the right one, Denny?
Windows.
Yeah, okay, I got it. No, thank you, I'm sorry.
All right, yeah, no problem. So we're going to strike up to $200,000 in that.
And
yes.
you asked me, and I was going to defer to Joe Williams, if that's okay?
Yes, on the windows, so the asbestos, the windows that had asbestos in the caulking, and those are done, so we'll, okay, so how much is in that fund?
$379.
Which fund?
Asbestos abatement.
Okay.
This is a separate warrant article they want to establish.
Yeah, I'm
no,
just
we
curious if
just
we
asked
had
to-
something there too, if we had something there that was,
Gotcha.
that would already, instead of creating another one, to, have one that was,
But it's only the windows in the lower end that might have asbestos. Majority of the windows don't, so I think that's why they want to create a brand new.
do we have a price on the windows that we, is this a beginning of a $500,000 window replacement, or is this gonna do?
No, we went with the CIP. It's 2 years to build up to replace the windows, which I believe Jerry has the information on the windows that we want to replace.
So ultimately, how much are you gonna wanna have in that, according to the CIP?
CIP had 400,000 in it for the window replacement.
So in 2 years, you wanna put $400,000 in a capital reserve fund to do the windows?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Which, if you'd like a further explanation, Jerry
okay,
would have.
thank you. Did,
Jared?
yes, yeah, Frank?
I'm wondering if if we're missing an opportunity to provide additional protection for anything other than windows that might come up that this could cover also. So unless this comes to exactly this amount that you allocate for windows and nothing else ever comes up, I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to look at any other high priority projects that could be, language could be added to give you a little protection for other than the windows. So that's it.
You mean like security?
Yeah, like doors. Replacing windows or doors or whatever else, because all of that stuff kind of goes together, so.
So so are you like referring to like broadening the language of this,
Yeah.
of this capital reserve fund or expendable trust fund so that it's not so limiting or?
Correct.
It's a good point.
And if that's not appropriate, that's not appropriate. I just didn't want to think that and not suggest it.
No, well, no, I think that we're always trying to include as many things in the warrant article language so that it's not, specifically, I think the state told us one about, if you had a capital reserve fund or expendable trust fund set up for one specific make of an automobile or something, and you were stuck. We had one with transportation where we had replacing school buses, but we couldn't lease them. We had to buy them because the language was, limited.
Joe's talked about doors before. I don't know if it's something you need to replace or if the doors are.
Wasn't this, you guys were on the CIP, did this come up and
Yeah.
so?
Yeah.
Was there more than the windows, or was there? Do you remember? I didn't bring a CIP, I
don't think there was any other discussion about that particular.
I'm sorry.
Sure. If you use the microphone, you have to use the microphone. I can hear you, but they won't be able to hear you on TV because it goes through the soundboard.
It's on, okay. So again, this is my priority. Looking at improvement in the building for the facility itself, the priority is the windows. The windows are very old. There is very little R value left in these windows, and you're really dependent on what the temperature is outside. Come this time of year, right next to those, it's pretty cold. We're losing a lot of heat. If we did some form of evaluation, I would expect we would find that we are just pouring money out in heat. On top of that, to open the windows at any other time, they become dangerous. The windows don't stay open, and when they come down very forcefully. In order to close a window at times, I have been known to stand on a windowsill, put my forearm on that, and use my body weight to close that window. This is, again, truly, this has been my priority for a couple of years. Aside from any kind of security we have in the building, this is the priority. And so, I think if we do need to add more into it, maybe we could reword the warrant itself and leave us that opportunity for next year if we need to add more in. Looking at, I'm not going to ask you tonight to do that, but I do think I appreciate the comment and the concern, but maybe rewording it so it's a little more, it gives us a little more latitude.
Maybe include energy efficient improvements.
Or even, you could even add something, as it was pointed out about the doors, just adding some language in that would give us more latitude to add into it for the following year. As this is a 2-year plan.
My only advice is that in this time when you create the warrant article, you don't guarantee revisiting it if you attempt to use as much inclusive language, whereas later on, next year, if you want to add language to it, it's a separate warrant article just to change the warrant article. That was it.
Yeah, we just talk about moving the money in the same expendable trust.
Even spending it in the same area, but in 2 or 3 seasons, something else comes up, you've already got your money that doesn't go away, and it's already, you can use it, and then you don't have to wait 6 months to ask again, and that was it.
We only got a couple of shots at it when we put the money in, so we want to make sure we do it correctly.
Well, thank you for that explanation.
Yes, sir.
So any more discussion on Article
Specific, it should be broad, so we can.
8?
You're right, absolutely.
I'll move the line.
Got a motion?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. $200,000 to create the expendable trust fund for windows.
Voting yeses or noes?
Charlie, did you have a?
No, I just didn't know if we were voting yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Do you have a question, Frank?
I would just encourage the school to change that language as per Frank's recommendation to make it a little more easier to put funds in there and not make it so restrictive, because we've run into this problem time and time again. Howie and I have been down this road too many times. So if you could broaden the language out, we could use it for lights, windows, doors, all kinds of things that make sense.
Would it be something to consider also trim work, to broaden that warrant article to expand the trim work on the inside of the windows?
Yeah, if we can say it in such a way so it's, we're changing fixtures and not maintaining things. I don't know what language we need, but if we're going to make changes to the fixtures and the building itself, we should be able to include it in here.
And that's a really good that's a really good example, because one evaluator's opinion might be that the trim work is not in fact part of the replacing or maintaining of a window, so it would be excluded, and then we guarantee a revisiting of this same warrant where just an effort to add protections.
Thank you, Frank. Howie and James. Yeah.
I guess I agree with the comments, but I guess I would look at what we did years ago with the asbestos abatement and room renovation. I mean, that kind of is a catch-all all unto itself. That's a particular trust, and I don't have the full wording with me, but I don't know if that would go under the windows, would go under that or not.
Room renovation. James, you had a question?
That was my question, why you couldn't utilize windows for room renovation.
I'm pretty sure that went to DRA, and DRA said that windows couldn't be part of that.
Did it? I don't know.
I mean, room renovation seems like it would be.
Well, it could be that could be your catch-all for your trim, if it needed to be. But I agree. I think we got to look at the wording of all of the warrant articles periodically, or the trust funds periodically, because sometimes they're written in a vacuum.
Well, just to Denny's point, we bumped into this with the parking lot a couple of years ago.
Don't go there.
When it was the same thing. It was the language within the warrant that didn't allow us to address the old part of the parking lot. Joe brings a great point that we need to address all parts of the window, not just replacing the windows themselves.
So I would ask you guys to look at all your warrant articles you've got the wording. I'll do the same. Well, we can, the trustees can. But I want to make sure we're not overlapping. I agree that we need to expand the wording on the windows, but I just don't want to have so many catch-alls that I don't know where they're going to come out of.
Well, so we have a motion and a second on that, so I mean, I'm not exactly sure.
Well, we can change it next year. I don't think it's going to have time to change them this year, but we got to make sure we understand from the CIP things that are going to be done and make sure if they do need a we got 3 new capital reserves anticipated for out of the capital improvement plan. So we're going to make sure that the wordings don't overlap and fit.
And this coincides with the CIP that you were working on too, right?
Yep.
So do we want to vote on this as it is and then vote next year or some other year to change the
Give us a chance to look
wording?
at, I think the trustees and the school ought to get together and look at all the wording to make sure we're all on the same page, same page.
Well, let's vote on that too, to get established.
I think it needs to be established. That's why I voted. I moved the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the creating the expendable trust fund. All in favor, raise your hands. Did you get it? No? 10-0. Thank you. Article 9, see if the Wakefield School District, shall the Wakefield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,020 to be placed in the Wakefield School District Asbestos Abatement and Room Renovation Expendable Trust Fund previously established in 2001 for the care of the building and maintenance. It's been approved by the school board by a vote of 5-0. The obvious question I think I have is, what's the $20 for? I knew you'd like it. How much is it?
This was $26,000 that was originally in the budget for the renovation of the activities hallway. And the recommendation, I don't know if it was by the budget committee or the school board, was to take that and put it in a warrant article. And then there was a line for $10,020, which, I'm sorry, $10,020, which was to do various repairs in rooms. And also, yes, also decided to take that out and put that on the same one. So it's 26 plus 1420. 26 for the renovation of the activities hallway, 1420 for what was in the budget on the line, which really did fit room renovation.
Right. This is a good example where we expanded something that I'm not sure it fits now in retrospect. That's all right.
I'll make a motion to move this article.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second for the $40,020. Any more discussion on?
In case anybody's wondering, it was $379 in that account.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a big bank of rooms last year. So
Yep.
continue to do it.
Yep.
Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Anyone opposed to 10? 10-0, Deb? Oh, I was asking you. I can't see good from here. My neck is too short to see way it. Article 10. Shall the Wakefield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $200,000 to be placed in the Wakefield School Transportation Expendable Trust Fund established in 2000 for the purpose of obtaining vehicles and funding major repairs of vehicles needed for student transportation? This is approved by the school board by a vote of 5-0.
Roughly $59,711 in there.
59.
I'd like to find out how many buses, first of all, how much does a bus cost? And how many do we plan to replace every year? And how many do we have in the fleet?
The last bus that we purchased was $83,000 and change.
Okay.
What this $200,000 does is it replaces van of 7-passenger van, Dodge Caravan, year 2010, which has 250,465 miles on it. It will replace a car, which can hold up to 2 students, a Chevy Impala, which has 200,000 miles on it, purchased in 2006, and it also contains a 77-passenger bus, purchased in 2009 with 198,422 miles. Those 3 would be replaced. They are the 3 oldest and the 3 with the most mileage. And we would be replacing, we have a total of 16 vehicles, and it would be our hope to continue to replace a certain number of them every year, depending upon the age.
So like maybe 2 a year on average, 3 a year?
I'm looking at probably 2, at least 2 a year. The next ones down were purchased in 2011, and there are 2 of those. So I believe those will be the 2 that we're looking at next year.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
We used to replace a bus a year, and then they got off schedule, and it got
We
way
did.
backed up.
Yes.
When you replace these vehicles, do you have like seal bid on the car and the van, or do you trade them in, or what do you do with these used machines?
We would be going out for bids to replace these on the car, the van, and the bus.
And the used ones are traded in, or you sell them, or what do you do with them?
Either or.
Either or?
Yeah. We wouldn't just let them sit. We would either try to
Do you have any idea what the value is of these 3 machines?
No, but looking at a van that has 265,000 miles on it, I don't think it would be more than maybe several thousand.
Yeah.
But that's just my guess.
Yeah. Thanks.
Looking for downstairs.
Or if you were to trade it in on, you said you needed another vehicle that would accommodate 2 students. Thanks. Any more questions on?
Move the line.
Second.
Motion is second for the $200,000 in Article 10. All in favor, raise your hand. I think so. Article 11, shall the Wakefield School District vote to establish a gym floor expendable trust fund per RSA 198-20, Section C, Roman numeral I, for the purpose of repairing and maintaining the gym floor, and to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $60,000. Oh, we're going to scratch that up too on those, correct? And raise and appropriate $60,000 to be placed in the fund and further designate the school board as agents to expend. What was the... So, all right, the line's not there, but the school board is 550, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no line.
So to create a expendable trust fund for $60,000 to do the gym floor, I don't know, if it's a $60,000.
It's $120,000.
So this
Total.
is the beginning of it then?
Yes.
Let's go to the CIP.
It was part of the CIP. That would be $60,000 over 2 years.
And none of these, all right, well, that's fine. Yes.
I believe the gym floor is from 1980, the gymnasium floor. 85. The gym floor is shared with the cafeteria during lunch hours. They have gym and lunch running at the same time, so it's been used quite a bit. And it is part of the CIP on a schedule.
Right. So, well, the price so this is just to start the fund. It's going to ultimately, your goal is $120,000 to have. I didn't bring my CIP with me. I just got these, so I didn't have much opportunity to review them.
I thought the CIP said replacement,
Repairing and maintaining.
the gym floor.
Multi-purpose floor. Just says new CRF.
What was it, Howie?
Well, it's just to replace the floor.
Right, and this doesn't say replace.
It says repair and maintain, so what's
It's not as
the...
replacing.
Oh, it should be replaced.
The wrong wording then.
So
Should be replaced.
The wording's incorrect.
would you rather have it accurate for the replacement, or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, don't snap at me. It's been a long day for me.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay, I'll get over it. So do you probably want to change the...
Jerry?
Yes?
Find out, it's $60,000. I know it's an older floor, but does it have to be done in this year? Can we move it out another year? What's the timing on it, Joe?
So it's been there already.
Yeah.
Since 1985.
Yeah.
It's VCT, we take it, we did invest again with waxing it and everything from year to year. It started to crack, it started to get house in it. What we're looking at doing is going with a rubberized lower flooring, which is up to a 50 to 70 year floor. And what that does is it's not only good for the shock absorption on the kids' knees, it's also something that never has to be maintained, all we do is wash it. So over the course of time, it's actually going to be longevity-wise better than what we have for VCT right now.
I understand that. My question is how critical is the time? This is a tough year for the town and the school budget-wise. I mean, we're getting big increases on both sides. Is this something we absolutely have to do this year, or could we slide this in the next year? That's my question. I mean, there's a lot of things on here that are critical that we have to do. Is there any discretion in this, or do we have to do it this year?
So this is this year and next year.
Yes. Can we put it off 1 year and then the following year? It's $60,000, it's a lot of money. How critical is it that we have to have it in this budget year?
Crazy.
Next year isn't going to be any easier.
Well, yep. At least we have a light at the end of the tunnel, huh? Except it's a train coming, that's all.
I just want to make sure everybody gets that. It isn't. We actually are holding back quite a bit. And if you do it next year or the year after, but it just isn't.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
Well, I tell you, as the selectman, I moved a lot of things that we talked about on the CIP in the next year, just to try to smooth out the increases so the taxpayers don't go into shock. And so I took out as many discretionary things as we could when we did the town budget. My goal is to have the school do the same thing, and I'll say it again. Is there any discretion, or is it absolutely necessary to put it in this budget?
Obviously, the kids can continue to play continue to have gym in the gym, and they can certainly continue to.
Can you move a little
I'm just
closer?
throwing it
Sorry,
out
for
to the committee.
We just
I mean,
can't wait. We can hear.
It's not in imminent danger of failing next year. Is it possible to consider adding a third year, $40,000 warrants or something like that as an alternative?
What is the condition of the floor, Joe?
We can definitely get away with another year of being the way it is. What we've done in the gymnasium is we've improved it over the course of time, over the last 4 or 5 years. New paint, new bleachers, so on and so forth. The floor is getting to the final part of that, and that gymnasium is going to be good for the next 20 years. So if we were to take the start warrant article this year, maybe start at 25,000, 20,000, then move it out for the next 3 years, we could work with that.
That's be easier for us to work with.
I make a motion, we reduce that to 20,000.
220 or by 20?
No, 220.
Down to down to $20,000.
$20,000.
Okay, yeah,
I'll second that.
all right, we got a motion and a second to reduce the amount in Article 11 from $60,000 down to $20,000. Anybody have any more discussion on that?
And that would push the CIP out another year.
I need to look at that after you say it.
Okay.
All those in favor of Denny's motion, raise your hand. Eight and opposed? 8-2. So were we going to change that wording in that to make it so that it can be just a, did you say there was a guarantee on that new floor, Joe, for a period of time?
There will be a guarantee on those, have to clarify this.
Oh, okay. I thought
Jerry, I had one more comment along those lines. You know, we talked about using the word replace rather than repair and maintain. Why don't we use all three words? Replace, repair, and maintain. So that way, down the road, we can get maintenance money in there too.
Good idea.
Right.
I get them once in a while.
The other thing too is, I mean, there's a few maintenance lines in the operating budget too. I mean, I guess these
Yeah.
are large enough that you would prefer to
Have it
do them
separate.
in warrant articles. And so, all right, we should be able to review that at the...
8th, on the 8th.
8th, right?
They need lines in there too for the school board.
Right. All set on that? Article 12.
Clement's got it.
Shall the Wakefield School...
Voted on the motion to reduce the amount, but you haven't really voted on the article.
Oh, you know what, that is, you know...
She's picky.
See, everything is, you're right.
Of course she's right.
I know. So now that we've changed Article 11, well, could we vote on that well, we can do it now, or we could vote on the 8th when the language has been changed too. I mean, whatever, we can vote on it now.
Yeah.
Want a motion?
Well, sure.
Read
Make a
the
motion.
new wording.
We got a motion for the 20,000?
Including the repairing.
I was trying to figure
and
that out.
maintaining and.
Replace them.
Replacing, repairing, and maintaining.
Did you get her
Correct, so we have to
motion?
vote on it.
No, it'd be zero.
Right, so we
Yeah.
Yeah, replace and... And who seconded that, Howie?
I moved it.
You
I
moved
moved
it?
it.
Oh, you moved, I seconded it. Right.
Is it getting late?
Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
I moved it, he seconded it.
Okay, so now we've got that out of the way. All in favor, raise your hands. 10. Article 12, shall the Wakefield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be placed in the Wakefield School District Roof Repair Expendable Trust Fund previously established in 2001 for roof repair and replacement. This school board recommends this by a vote of 5-0. And I thought we just did the roof over there.
I did too.
Priscilla?
They just completed the roof after 5 years, and it's supposed to have 30-year shingles on it.
Right.
And, you know, I think it's a little early to start a new trust fund, especially this year.
Okay. Great point. Tracy, yes.
That is the point, is to make sure that the money is there in the future for people that need to replace the roof, so that they have the money to do it.
Okay.
So make sure it is
We're gonna
it is properly and responsibly funded, is what the board's intention is.
Okay. Howie, did you have something?
I was just going to say we got $1,000 up to the fund.
No, the $1,000 in that now. Well, I mean, I think if we got shingles on there with a 30-year, you know, even if it's 25 or 30-year guarantee on it, I mean, I think that Denny may want to make a motion to push this back a year or two.
Or eliminate it.
Well, I mean, you know, we could eliminate it. I mean, I'm not sure that if the Wakefield School District appropriated all the money to do the entire roof and get 30-year shingles on it, I think maybe there comes a point where we've done our share, and I think the people that are going to be dealing with this roof in 20 years, they may want to step up to the plate and throw their money in. So, any more
Make a
discussion?
motion to reduce that line to 0.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of reducing that from 10,000 to, raise your hand. I got 7, Deb. 7-3. And that was just to change it to 0, right? So
Right.
now we can,
Discussion time?
yes.
So, these recommendations ought to come from empirical data. And right now, what we're looking at is a number thrown out as a placeholder with zero evidence of its effectiveness. And $10,000 is not an agreeable number by 7. I suggest we actually use some kind of evidence to have an annual cost. There's got to be some evidence that roof maintenance occurs and there's a cost associated, and that we could visit this line item with actual necessary money versus money as a placeholder. We have a $200,000 vehicle placeholder without a lot of, like, how much it's actually going to cost. That could have been our gym floor there, you know, it could have actually used the evidence to justify a gym floor, which actually had the evidence, cost estimation. But I think for all of these that have costs associated, we need to know what they actually are. I'm not sure that zero's the right number. I'm thinking maybe at least $1,000 a year probably goes into somebody going up there and making sure the gutters are clean, and if there's no gutters, then the air conditioning vents or whatever. I don't know. Something happens, and somebody has to write a check to pay for it. That's my perspective, that we need to have some evidence.
Yeah.
So there is no cost. You guys pay me to take care of that, so there is no cost for that. But for what it did take to do the roof over a 5-year course of time was $275,000 over 5 years. So what we were doing was spinning that out over the course of time. And make sure that $275,000 was going to be reestablished for the next person coming along. So we wouldn't have to.
That should have been part of the discussion.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. Dave, yes.
I'm wondering if the no means no would apply to this, because in my limited knowledge, if you have a warrant article for a specific purpose and the voters vote no on it, or it says zero, and let's say, you know, the roof starts leaking, can you just grab some money from somewhere and fix the roof because you specifically have a voter?
Well, we're just adding money.
zero?
We're just adding money to the. We're just adding money to the fund. So I'm not sure if the no means no would actually come into effect. I mean, you'd obviously, if you had a leak, you'd have to repair it. But
I'm wondering if it should be $1, or does the money that's already in there cover that?
Well, the money, how much is in there, Howie?
Just 1,000.
Well, I mean, you know, and you also have 4 or 5 maintenance lines in the operating budget too that can.
Right,
I
we
mean,
can use
they
maintenance
can take
lines
care of
for that,
some
too.
of the.
Money from other maintenance lines could go to fix the roof if something happened.
Well, you have to maintain the building, obviously.
Have a warranty on it.
Right. Well, and that's right too. We got a 30-year guarantee on it. So I mean, if something happens I mean, I'm sure that if this gets turned down, I'm sure that doesn't mean that we can't do any repairs on the.
Well, if everyone votes
building.
yes on it, it's yes to zero, you know?
That just means we're putting zero into that repair expendable trust fund, I think.
Yep.
I'd like to second your 1,000. Is that what you put in?
No, I didn't make a motion.
And where were we? Were we voting on the reduction to zero? I'm sorry, what?
Can I ask for clarification?
With a microphone.
Yeah, do you have the microphone? Can you share a little bit over there? Do we have to get 7 microphones for you school people?
So I just, this is new for me, so I just wanted clarification. So maybe I have to ask the RA. So once the warrant article is here, and both the school board and the budget committee voted on it, if it's zero, can the school board vote to eliminate that? Or do we need to keep it on as a warrant article because it was presented that way? I'm asking.
Well, I mean, the school board voted on it. I mean, they.
Yeah, but we can't change it to zero. We can vote no. It's not an operating budget line. Operating budget line, we can change it to zero, Denny. We can't change warrant articles, can we?
Yeah. You can change it, we can change, and we can change it at the public hearing, and it can be changed at the deliberative session.
We leave it on. We leave it on.
Well, I mean, I mean, I don't know what, I mean, you know, if the school board decided that they didn't want to have the article on there, I don't think that there's a law that says that it has to remain on the ballot if that's the question.
I don't see
mean-
why you can't take it off. You haven't gone through the public hearing or DS, so.
I just need clarification.
Right, I mean, I think as far as I know, I think that the school board could, you know, they could, you know, if they decided to not put it on there, that's always an option. I mean, because we're just getting this, what we're doing now is we're just getting all the information ready and trying to get it ready for the public hearing. And I mean, I think a lot of the questions and everything from the budget committee too come from the fact that when we have the public hearing, we may get these same questions from the public, so you try and anticipate what they might ask so that when we do have the public hearing, we'll have
The answers.
a little more information.
Jerry, you know, it's not that I'm not saying that we don't need to put money away for a roof at some point, but to take it to an extreme, if you look at all of the town buildings, I mean, the school roof is relatively brand new. If we're going to start worrying about roofs 30 years out, then we ought to have one for this building, we ought to have one for the highway garage, and we ought to have one for the police station and everything else. You know, when the life on the roof is like 10 years, then I say we start worrying about it and we put away 25, 30, 50,000, whatever we need.
5
But
years.
to worry about it 30 years in advance, to me, we're not doing it on any other building, why should we do it on the school?
Good point, Denny, thanks.
Yep.
So are we voting on reducing that to zero?
Yep.
Because we're not asking that the warrant article get taken out. We could just leave it there and put money in next year. I mean,
Well, the trust fund's there.
We're not
The
eliminating
fund
the
is
warrant
already, this
article.
fund has already been
Fund's already there.
established, so you
Exactly, so it's there.
can add to it anytime. So I guess we'll vote on the motion that.
We did.
We've already voted on the motion to reduce it from 10 to 0.
Zero, right.
Thank you, Deb. So do we want to vote on the article now that it's been zero?
yes.
That's how we did.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so-
Make a motion to approve the warrant article at zero.
All right, all in favor? Who seconded that?
Second.
Charlie?
No.
Oh, James, thank you. Motion and second to approve the Article 12 at zero, raise your hand.
Approving at 0.
8-2. Article 13, shall the Wakefield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be placed in the Wakefield School District updating and improving security expendable trust fund previously established for the purpose of updating and improving security at the Paul School. Does anybody have the wording article, the wording on that warrant article from when it was created? And was that 2011 or 2012? I'm sorry?
I have it at home, but
It should have been somewhere. Well, because I was watching the selectmen's meeting, and when the selectmen on the 13th of July were, the 11th of July were discussing the student resource, or the school resource officer, and funding it, and I think Christine said that there was, someone asked if there was grant money available, and she said, yes, there was grant money available for security, but it didn't include personnel, and it got me to thinking that, I was wondering exactly how that article was worded that we used to improve the school security to create this, to see if that included personnel or if that just included improvements to the building. Because I remember that grant that was available was it specified one or the the other.
I'm almost positive there's no personnel in that.
I don't think there's
warrant
personnel in the
article.
warrant
It was
article.
strictly items.
But we approved using that if we had to, but turns out we don't have to anyway, for the resource center officer.
Oh, they're not going to use that to
He can't.
fund
He's got to be part of the town budget.
It's not on here.
Well, then that kind of lets me off the hook.
We've got currently $79,588 in that account.
And so then what do we?
9,000?
Yeah, because there was almost 80, but
That's
what are we anticipating the extra $5,000 for the increase into that fund?
We're looking at the report that comes from the Department of Education on safety and security, and we're looking at a lot of recommendations that we would like to build the trust up over time to take advantage of. And so it was just to continue to build that up so that we could look at other ways that we could improve safety and security.
Have we spent something like $250,000 or $350,000 on security in that building?
I'm not aware of that. I know that what is in the trust fund right now will pay the school resource officer starting on January 1 for the rest of this year.
I thought that.
No,
That's
not
out.
even- not even the rest of this year.
Well, I mean, because, I think what
Right,
happened was
Denny?
it got taken out, because it got taken out of the school.
He's staying in the town, right? The resource center is staying. Yeah.
Right, but that's next year.
next year.
That's next year,
Next
right?
year.
Nope.
It's going into the town budget for next year.
January, we have to, we start paying the SRO this,
No, you're not.
Well, we took it out.
We found out we can't.
We took it out of the school budget. What do you, so,
but next year's budget, this year, he starts January 1.
Denny and I raised the question Denny raised it with the chief. And the chief rightly says, by law, he has to stay on the town budget. And we couldn't figure a way, accounting-wise, to not have to raise and appropriate $160,000, because we'd have to raise and appropriate them both.
What?
So we decided just leave, and the chief asked other towns where the school resource officers' money came from and was there any reimbursement, and he said virtually none.
Okay, I was there, I do understand that. That starts, for the school, this budget would start July 1.
You will not get charged for that resource officer.
For this
Forever.
January 1st?
Forever.
January 1st? Okay. Okay, I just want to.
Right, Danny?
That's correct.
Even this January 1 from last year's budget for you.
My understanding is that, aren't we paying X number of months out of the trust fund that you guys agreed to in FY?
No.
That's what we're talking about.
No, because why should I pay it if the town's gonna, if the captain says community policing belongs in his budget totally?
Well, the latest word I had with the chief is he was under the impression that it was out of the budget, but he was going to get money from the trust fund until the budget started.
Right.
We're talking about that, but if the budget, he's got the officer hired, correct?
Yes, he does.
Why do it? Go from one pocket to another.
Well, then I'll give him a call and tell him that he's not
Yeah.
getting anything.
well, I mean, I think the thing, I mentioned earlier that I was did anybody else? I mentioned earlier I was watching the July 11th meeting, and I mean, you guys came in and you made quite a presentation to the Board of Selectmen, and I mean, Connie left, but I mean, nothing that you proposed has happened. I mean, you were going to check with the voters, and you wanted to get the approval of the voters before you did that, but then you decided, well, the voters aren't going to vote on it until March 2019, so you decided to institute it in October of 2018.
With the trustees'
And then-
approval.
and then-
With the trustees' approvals.
And then you wanted to get all the details and everything worked out. I mean, all this mess that we're discussing here, who's funding it, how can you do this, how can you do that? Michelle Clark said that some places put it through a warrant article. I mean, if you put it in a warrant article in March, obviously you wouldn't be able to start it until after March, right? But that would be where the voters would weigh in on it, right? So,
Town also.
one of your, what?
The town voters would have to vote on it too.
Right, so that would be one of your steps that you presented was to have the voters weigh in on it.
Right.
But they're not going to do that. And I mean, all these details and stuff, I mean, I don't know if anybody, I just got this, I've been trying to get this for a while, but I don't know if anybody's gotten the student resource officer agreement. There was apparently the police chief made an agreement with the school. And then there's some of the descriptions. I mean, I just got that. I mean,
Memorandum of agreement, is that?
memorandum of understanding, but I mean, I think, there was something mentioned about it at that meeting about getting the budget committee on board. I mean, you didn't do that.
Got the trustees on board.
Well, I mean, what you presented the trustees with a question.
Yeah.
She presented you with a question, can this money be used for security? I mean, for the SRO.
That's why you say that we said yes.
Right, and we did, and I just thought about it afterwards after I watched the meeting where she said that grant money was specifically for building security upgrades, not personnel. And that was what got me to thinking that we should have reviewed the language of the warrant article and the minutes. Huh?
We did. I don't remember looking at the minutes, but I remember looking at the warrant article.
To see what the intention was of the voters. Was it for safety improvements to the building, or did it include personnel?
The whole thing. Anyway,
So-
it's a kind of a moot point now. He has to belong to the police department anyway. So,
Well, I mean, they're going to continue to do what they've been doing now, but I think did you get an office ready for him over there at the school now someplace? So he
Yes.
said, so he's going to be working for the town, but he's going to be
Have a
working at
place
the
at the
school.
school, right, as of January 1.
Right.
Is he there now?
No.
He hasn't started?
No, January, the beginning of January. It would have been on a warrant article if it hadn't been decided it would be done differently. I think when you asked me about the grants, they have grants at the state level for security. Those are the ones that cannot be used for personnel.
Right.
The one that we have in the district, when we asked the trustees of trust funds, could we use it? The answer was yes. So I think we're talking about two different grants.
Well, no, one is the town's trust fund that we had set up for
Right.
security, but what my point was, I wanted to see if we were limited to building improvements or if ours included personnel improvements with our security up.
I didn't go to that level of detail.
Because I didn't happen to see it, and I couldn't find the minutes. But that's not a big deal. I mean, it's just that, the whole thing, the whole pitch at the selectmen's meeting was the importance to have everything all laid out and everything all figured out and have the voters weigh in, and this would have been a process that would have taken from July 11th, 2018 to March. But you decided to skip all that stuff that you said you were going to do and implement it in October or November of 2018. I mean, your point was how important it was to get everything right and talk with other people to make sure of how to do this. And, now we rushed into it basically and didn't do any of that. And so the funding is confusing. The police department's going to pay for it. The town's going to cover it with no offsetting revenue.
I do think that security article was very vague because they didn't want to put anything in there so that anybody would know what they were actually doing.
I understand.
Exactly. It was very vague. It could be used for anything.
Tracy,
Yeah, no, I don't believe there was any intention to not follow the process. It was decided at the selectmen's meeting to use, with the trustees, that was the choice at that meeting, to use the money in the trust fund. We wish it had started in September. It didn't. We wish he was there right now. Turns out that for whatever reason, he's going to on January 1. We were planning to put it in a warrant article. It was decided to come out of the town budget. It was not at the direction of the superintendent or the board. We very happy to follow all procedures. We were asked to pull it out of the trust fund, which was fine. We wanted to get somebody on the property.
Well, they were on the property anyway. I mean, because they've been going in there. Well, they told us at the selectmen's meeting that the police have been going in there. They've been rotating officers through the school on different days of the week, right? That they were going in, and Vin Wallace even said he thought it was great because what, Sandy? Why are you shaking your head? They said they were already doing it because Vin Wallace said it worked out well for him and his children because they were getting to know the police because the police were going over to the school.
No.
They are there for the DARE program.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe they were confused.
Either way.
Okay, well, anyway.
Resolved.
Well, back to this.
Okay, so
if you have 79,000 in there, and you're asking for 5...
That won't be used.
Right, that you didn't use, do you need to have this warrant article on here?
I honestly thought this expendable trust would be...
Right. Well, I understand that, yeah, but now, do you want to leave this on here?
Take it off.
No, if there's that much still, if we don't have to use it for the SRO, then that's fine. We'll just leave it there.
You're going to check and make sure you can take them off, right?
But, yeah. But I don't know where it's coming from, honestly, for January 1.
Well, I mean, I think that goes back.
We're surprised as well.
We can just take Article 13 off.
That goes back to the point that I was trying to make, because on the 13th, we had this, the 11th of July, we had this plan all laid out to look at all these details and everything, and none of the details got looked at, and nothing was ironed out, nothing was looked into, and it was just get the guy in there, and, I mean, you laid out a plan, you laid out a comprehensive plan, then you threw it in the trash, and this is what we got.
We're actually waiting for him to show up. That's actually, we're waiting for him to show up. We've been waiting to make a payment out of the trust fund, but he hasn't been there to make a payment for. So I believe we were proceeding exactly as what was settled at the selectmen meeting.
DRA's been involved in it too, by the way.
Yeah, he just hasn't started, so we haven't made
Right,
any
Dan?
payments. And now you tell us that we don't, that the school board doesn't owe it anyway.
No.
So I'm not,
Well, I had talked to Michelle Clark, I got an email from her, she said you could put it in a warrant article, but then I said, well, that doesn't matter now because the town decided not to charge the school for it, they're just gonna do it out of the school budget, so, out of the town budget, so, anyway.
So do we have to vote to take this off, or do we just
No.
let the board take this off?
I don't know, we'll just see if they
Because
can
they
take it
can
off.
explain why it's off.
Yeah.
Article 14, shall the school district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,790 to be placed in the Wakefield School District Technology Fund established in 2009 for the purpose of purchasing, replacing, and upgrading computers and related educational media technology in the Wakefield School District. The school board recommends this by a vote of 5-0. And...
$7,399.
$7,399.
This is the money that we took out of their budget, or recommended they take out of their budget, put it in the warrant article.
Did you guys have something on Article 14?
yes, he is.
We didn't vote.
T.
Sorry, I didn't know if we had tabled our,
Well, I think we were going to
Article
let we're going to let the school board decide whether or
okay,
not they
so we're
want
tabling
to
if you're good. I just wanted to-
move that forward. Was that the consensus, to see if the
14,
school
yeah.
board wants to?
On 13?
13?
Yeah, take it off.
If the school board is not responsible for the payment of the SRO starting January 1 through the end of our fiscal year, then we don't need to replenish it with the $5,000. So if somebody could confirm that, that would be great.
Thank you.
Okay.
So there's $73.99 in there, so that's going to be $50,000. Do we have projects, Tracy, for this $50,000 now, or is this something that we're building up to be?
The technology, actually, this was moved from...
Article 14, right?
Article 14, $40,000. $40,790 is technology that was moved from the operating budget to...
We moved it from the operating budget to...
to the warrant article.
Okay. All right, so that was...
There's various replace computer. We're trying to stagger them in the SAU, various teachers and student. There's a $15,000 student computer replacement. So replacement.
Okay, so I mean, you've got...
50 Chromebooks and 15 teachers.
Yeah, I mean, so you've got a plan on what that's
I
going to...
think it was 50 Chromebooks and 15 teacher replacement.
Yeah.
Right. And they were in the operating, and they were moved to the warrant articles.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's right, too. I'd forgotten about that. I knew there was a few that were moved. Any more discussion on...
Move the line.
Article 14?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Ten. Okay, moving along. Article 15, shall the Wakefield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $26,500 to be placed in the SAU Office Capital Reserve Trust Fund established in 2018 for the purpose of building, repair, maintenance, and equipment at the SAU office. This is approved by the school board by a vote of 5-0.
I'd like to read that warrant article.
Sorry?
I'd like to read the original warrant article.
Okay.
Shall the Wakefield School District vote to create a capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 to be known as a building maintenance, repair, and equipment for the new SAU for the purpose of repairing, maintaining, and purchasing equipment for the SAU office building, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $28,500, and this is the part, and some to be funded by the return of the Wakefield's share of unencumbered fund balance surplus due to the separation of Wakefield from SAU 64, which will be in effect June 30th, 2017, and to name the school board as agents to expend and fund. This article will not result in additional taxation. How can you add this to this article?
Well, we established the...
Trust fund.
We established the trust fund. I mean, I think that, is this saying that because of that money we got back from SAU 64 was gonna...
I was asked that question, I sent it to Michelle, and she said we could add money to
Could
it.
add money to it?
Well, I mean, we created, I mean, I think
Yeah,
the thing they're just saying there is that for this particular, that particular time, I guess, it's gonna have that money in it.
The initial funding came from
that.
From that, and that did not cause any additional taxation for that year. So they did create the trust fund.
We did get the money from SAU
We did get the money,
64.
and it's in there now. We still got 28,000, well, less what you're spending now on your server.
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, we can add to it.
I was asked the question, so I sent it to Michelle, and she said, yeah.
Right.
It was a question that came up to me because it seemed to me that that money was earmarked for a specific purpose from a specific fund.
And it was, but that was the initial money.
But
it
this
didn't-
article will not result in additional taxation, the article.
This
Will not
article.
result in
But this article will.
Right.
Oh, this, okay, yeah, I see, yeah.
So that can go in there?
Yeah. So this can say what it says. You know, they can add money to it. It was just saying that this particular article here would not add tax dollars because it was being funded from the SAU. But it did create with non-lapsing. It didn't lapse.
I know, I asked if it was non-lapsing.
It's non-lapsing.
So how much is in there now, Howie?
28, well, I say 28,000, but I happen to know Marie's getting a new server, so that'll come out of there. So I don't know how much that is.
I think it's up to 24,000, the board said they would utilize on that, and we're in the process of finalizing. We don't ask for money until all the bills are...
Yeah, I know you don't.
So that's, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That basically wipes it out. That'll leave about 4,000 in there.
Oh, okay. And is this just, is this an anticipation of needing this money, or is there this 26,000?
Do you have a need for the additional funds?
Project now that...
I don't think.
There is not. We did have some plumbing issues last year. We had computers crash on us. We, it was used well. We were using thumb drives for memory. It was very necessary, and the SAU, the other building had some plumbing failures during last winter. So it was used. It was very necessary and very helpful.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, you don't have any particular project for this amount of money. I mean, it's just...
We do not.
It's been there in the past and it's been used, so...
Wait, hold on a second.
Oh, wait, Marie has a... I can't read lips. Use the microphone.
I wanted to speak. So the school board voted to take out $1,500 out of the business office budget in the operating budget and applied the $1,500 to this trust fund to replace computers on an ongoing basis. So we had funding. So originally the warrant article was to $25,000, and then the last board meeting they decreased the operating budget by $1,500 and added it to this warrant article.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. That's right.
Frank, yes.
My question again, it's going to sound familiar, is this 25,000 minus the 1,500 for computers, which is evidentiary, based on plumbing problems you had? Was this based on inspections for anticipated plumbing problems, or average annual expenditures? That's all I'm asking. Is there...
Actually, it's there as a holding spot as what occurred this year, because there is a technology trust fund currently for the district, but it's for Paul's school. So we cannot tap into that trust fund if something is needed at the SAU office. Since it's a new office, the board, I don't want to speak for the board, felt that they just wanted to replenish it so that if something happened, they had a resource to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We did have a major computer crash at our SAU this year. The trust fund was very, very helpful in solving that.
Well, I remember, I don't know if that was last year. I remember you had the internet problems. And any more discussion on Article 15?
I have some.
Yes, Priscilla?
Now that they're taking care of the computer crashes and that kind of thing, I think that's a lot of money to put in this article, considering the amount of money and everything else. 25,000 for something that you're not even sure of. 26.5.
Well, so,
I'd like to reduce it.
so if these, I mean, so what you're saying, I mean, the computers have been fixed, the plumbing's been fixed, so I mean, what are the chances of another major, what else is it? It's a modular, what else is in there that could,
I mean, anything could happen any place. It could happen at the school too, but
right. Is there any maintenance line in the SAU
yes.
budget?
Well, that is.
This is,
This is the maintenance line.
well, there's not a maintenance line in the budget.
No.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that, well, would the,
Actually, it's all underneath, under one umbrella, so if needed maintenance, Joe's department would go and maintain
okay,
it.
so I mean, so that would be, I mean, so because the capital reserve fund was exclusively for the Paul School and couldn't be used for the SAU office, that isn't the case with the operating budget, right? They can do maintenance on anywhere on the property,
It's one
right?
district now.
Okay.
So you want to reduce it to?
16.5, take 10 out.
Is that your motion to reduce
Yeah,
it by
that's my
10?
motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to reduce the 26,500 by 10,000, bringing it down to 16,500 in Article 15. Any discussion on that amendment?
$16,500, yeah.
All in favor of reducing that, say aye.
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 You can raise, cover your hand there.
Oh, we can just do a voice vote on this, but I mean, and,
Yeah.
well, we're just changing the amount.
Sorry. We said aye and raise our hand.
Whichever way do you want to do it, by hand? Okay, well, reducing it by 10 grand according to 16,500.
7 in favor of the amendment, 3. Is that correct?
Yep. Now move the article.
So,
I'll move the new article.
you're going to make a motion for the article at 16.5, Howie?
Yep.
I'll second it.
Motion and second to approve Article 15 in the amount of raise and appropriate $16,500. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? 1. Budget does not, does recommend that, yes. 9 to 1. Article 16, shall the Wakefield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be added to the Educationally Disabled Children Expendable Trust Fund previously established. The school board recommended this by a vote of 5 to 0. What's in that, 105 right now, Howie?
Yep.
I move the article.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on Article 16?
What we've heard, we could be needing that money sooner rather than later.
When we set it up and we added to it incrementally, our goal was to get to 100,000 and we're past that. So now we're kind of going to double what our original goal was. Does this have an upper number that we're going for, or is it, do we keep putting money in? I mean, I'd like to know, are we going for 300, 400, a half a million? What number are we looking for in total for this fund?
Thanks, Denny. Tracy, yes.
It's very possible we're going to use it this year. So we're really considering just refilling it, not adding. We're considering refilling it. We are very probably going to use it this year.
It's very...
Okay, but I thought we wanted to add $200,000 because you weren't going to have enough in the budget, and that was mostly special ed. And now we already have 100,000 in the trust fund, so another 100. So you're talking about an extra 400,000 in special ed that we didn't anticipate. Is that what you're going for?
Well, the 200 is, we hope we don't have to use it.
Well, no, but
The
what I've
200, we
heard
actually
is
do
that
not
we
hope.
have-
We would use we have to use the trust fund before you use the 200. You have to
But
use all
wasn't that 200 for
resources.
special ed? Wasn't that the reason we thought we might need it?
It's one of the reasons, so we're off by tuition, we're off by insurance of $100,000, we're off by
So what we're saying again
200.
is that we have like 400,000 in special ed, and we can't ask any questions because it's all confidential. You know, I'm not, this is not accusatory, but I mean, the way this is set up, when you got 20% of your budget in special ed, and we can't ask any questions, it's a real nice opportunity to load up that portion of the budget, and we're sitting here scratching our heads saying, what's it for? And everybody says, you can't ask any questions, it's confidential. It irritates me, pure and simple. And now you want to add another 100,000 to this warrant article, so we have 200 in there, plus $2 million in the regular budget, plus you want another 200,000 in case you need it. And we're sitting there saying, well, I hope they're right.
I mean,
I'm disgusted with it, to tell you the truth.
I'm sorry, what?
And it's not your fault, I'm just disgusted with the whole thing. We're here representing the taxpayers. We have at least a $2 million budget, and it's sealed. And that's not fair to the taxpayers.
How, just out of, I mean, so, one thing you said was, I mean, we've had this in there for, I mean, we built this up, I think we put in $20,000 a year for several years to
We
get.
got it up to 100,000, which was our goal. Now we're going to double the goal.
Right.
I'm saying, what's the new goal?
Right, well, I mean, I think the thing is, I mean, you said it's very likely that we'll use that this year. I mean, how do you determine that it's very likely that we'll use that money?
Actually, Ann Kebler could speak. She's our expert on our special ed.
I just generally go to the school board representative.
I'm sorry,
first.
okay.
That's fine, Ann.
No,
Sure,
actually,
that's fine.
I can answer that.
I wanted to offer you the opportunity first, yes.
I do, actually, I will, Jerry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You have the microphone.
So first, I apologize for not being here at the first Budget Committee meeting. I'm happy to answer any question that anyone has in special ed. I try very hard to be very transparent with my budget. I will tell you that when I prepared the special ed budget, based on actuals, I was up by $400,000. I went and spent the weekend, reviewed all IEPs. The IEPs are plans for students. I reviewed related services. I cut that budget by $200,000 before I brought it to the board. This year, we are currently based on what was encumbered this past month. Based on what was encumbered this past month, we are $250,000 over in our 1,200 lines. That is primarily based on 5 out-of-district placements that were unanticipated. Out-of-district placement runs anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000, and 2 ABA tutors for students in our school. Ask me questions. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Well, I mean, to the point that it's like, well, I mean, I think, you know, like we were saying, we built this up to 105,000 by more incremental amounts, $20,000 a year. I mean, so, you know, and of course, I understand this is a different school board, this is a different SAU, so if a school board previously told us that $105,000 or $100,000 would be sufficient in this fund, now you're coming back and saying, well, you know, we need 205 or 210,000 in it. I mean,
no, I believe that
next year, a couple of years from now, will we have a different school board that will come in and say they need another 200,000 in it because they anticipate that they'll need, you know, $500,000? I mean, it's just trying to figure out where it.
I would say that $100,000 in a special ed trust fund is what our goal is, or what my goal always has been. I don't believe that $200,000 is primarily special education. I believe that the board is thinking that we will use a significant amount of the trust fund to help cover our costs. One of the things that is the most difficult piece to special ed is when students move in and out. And I can't predict that. So July 1st of this year, we had a student move in, significant cost to the district. Could I have a student move out in the next 6 months? Sure.
Right.
As soon as that student moves out, we close the PO, we change the encumbrance so that we can show our numbers are real. I would anticipate, based on current numbers, that we will probably look at trying to use about $75,000 out of the trust fund. The goal to me always has been to maintain about $100,000.
Right, and I mean, and because you've been here for years, and I mean, you were there when we began this, you worked with us to create the trust fund, and we obviously turned to you for your expertise on doing that. So I mean, you have more experience in this than anybody else has, you know, from beginning, you know, to right now anyway, so.
And I'll tell you that the original $200,000 that I cut before presenting to the board, I cut $100,000 out of special ed contracted services with an anticipation of looking at potentially hiring our own occupational therapist and hiring a speech-language assistant instead of, we currently have 2 full-time speech-language pathologists. So that $200,000 is looking at reorganizing. It's a little bit of a risk because it's hard to know whether or not we're going to be able to hire our own employee as an occupational therapist, but that's where I would look at starting.
So with your experience, do you think that we need to have $305,000 or $310,000 in this trust fund as of March 2019?
I'm asking for 200.
Sorry?
200.
Well, added to the 105 that's in there, right?
100 and 105.
So it'd be 200.
So they want to add $200,000 to the...
I think that...
Okay, 100, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, we're doubling it, yeah, that's right.
I think that's based on a concern that we'll be taking 75,000 out.
So can I jump in? If answer Denny's question, what should our number be? Our total number?
In a trust fund?
Yeah.
I would say $100,000.
Let me ask, because I really get confused. If we have 200,000 in Article 6 that's supposed to add to this year's budget, okay, is that all primarily for special ed?
No.
No, it's not all primarily special ed.
Okay, well then, if you need the 100,000 in special ed next year, why don't you put it in the budget as opposed to put it in the trust fund when you said that your max in the trust fund is 100,000? We already have it. If you're going to need it in the following year, why don't you add it to the budget?
This particular, right now, we're $205,000.
250.
250. In the 1,200 line. So this year, we expect that we will be using the expendable trust, and we may need additional funds to cover special ed.
So Chris, do you need the 100,000 in there plus the 200,000 and line 6?
It's possible.
So you need 300,000 extra this year.
It's not all special ed. We had unanticipated expenses in tutoring this year, which, because we have a very tight budget, we're going to overrun those lines, and we don't have anything that is built into the budget where we could move money from another line and cover it with something else. So it's not all special ed, but it is in large part special ed. So right now, we're $206,000 in the red, in the 1,200 line. Some of that can come from the when Ann says she hopes it's 75, that's an estimate of where she hopes will be, but we can't guarantee that that's going to be.
Okay, well, if you use 75 out of the trust fund, then why are we putting 100 back into it? Because that put us at 130 when you said you only need 100.
If we believe the goal, and I agree, it is $100,000, where does that number come from? That's generally the upper end of the placement that you're going to have for a student that you didn't expect. This is an extraordinary year. We didn't expect we were going to have 5 in the same year. So the goal is to keep that expendable trust at $100,000 for the future, so that if we have another student who moves in the future, we have someplace to go for that unanticipated expense.
Dave has kind of, just
I was-
1 second, because Dave has been waiting.
I was on the committee when this was established, and we built it up slowly like we're trying to do the roof and all these other things. When we put 20,000 and 20,000, it was never the intention that it was going to be 20,000 a year. Our intention was to build it up to $100,000. My understanding was that that 100,000 could go in one swoop. If one student or 2 students with special needs enrolled, zoom, it's gone in 1 year. So I look at this 100,000 as just refilling the bucket. And it may have to be done over and over again, depending on the enrollment and what their needs are. So I don't see a problem with this at all. And the other one is for deficit. So I see this as clearly identified special ed for students who have special needs that may come into the district. And obviously, it's not in the budget because the trust fund rolls over. We built it up over these years. So if we don't use it, it's there. And if we suddenly need it, it's there. So all I see is this, we're refilling the bucket because it's obviously being used. For privacy, we don't want to know who and why. All we need is the amount.
And I can say that of the 5 unanticipated out-of-district placements we have this year, one of those placements is over $100,000.
Thank you, Ann. Frank, you had a question?
Yeah, I noticed of the 4% of the budget that the Budget Committee recommended go to warrant articles, I couldn't find this $100,000 in any of those recommendations. So is this something that was added afterwards, or did I miss that? I looked at all the different line items that we recommended be looked at as possible warrant articles, and I didn't find this article in there.
Well, this wouldn't have been in the
Originally put in another fund. So my other question is, I listened to, we anticipate next year needing this money again. It seems to me that anticipation is the very reason it needs to go into the regular budget and not a warrant article. I wanted to encourage the anticipation of the budgetary need to be addressed in the proper line item.
So for as long as I've worked with the Wakefield School District, we have talked about putting ghost positions in our out-of-district line. And the Wakefield School Board has never been okay with putting ghost positions. So if I were to increase our out-of-district line by $100,000 right now, that would be a ghost position.
But we did increase it by a warrant article, accomplishing the same thing.
Actually, we're not actually trying to increase.
Can you get closer to the microphone, Tracy? We can't hear you.
So we're refilling it for next year.
We
are refilling it. We anticipate using it between January and June.
I understand that, and the way I listen to that is by virtue of anticipation, budgeting that in the normal line item is how that should be recognized. If you didn't anticipate, if you said, okay, we didn't anticipate 75,000 this year, and we want to put the 25 back in to make it to 100, and then next year we didn't anticipate another 7, that would be different, but you anticipate spending that money. So it seems to me it's a way to subvert the budgetary process by putting it in a warrant to keep the school budget constrained, which I can totally appreciate that vehicle to try to replenish a fund, but not beyond the fund's intent to be at. So to add $100,000 to a fund as anticipated to be spent outside of normal budgetary accounting, and to do that while doubling the original intent of the fund seems to me, it just looks to me, like it's subverting the budgetary process, not in a just in case, not in a just like this year we needed it, and that's just my perspective, so.
It seems to me that we do that with a lot of things in the whole process. The whole town uses trust funds that way. And it was set up prior to us, so it is the system that is in place. If we don't put any money in and we use 75, we have 35 left for the ensuing year. And the responsibility...
And there's a lot of value, and that actually in itself is value enough to do that, except that we are radically increasing the original intent of the fund amount in anticipation of spending it, not in anticipation of having a larger cushion, but in anticipation of having no cushion.
Well, that's our cushion.
And it's a budget item.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
I just wanted to address one thing. The $200,000 in lines in Article 6 is not to be raised until November. It is not to be raised in Article 6 until, I believe you can speak, she could speak better, but to it, unless it is actually needed,
No,
which we will
I'm in
we will
Article
find
15. That was the one I was referring to, though.
Right, no, I knew
Okay.
that. Denny, I wanted to go
okay.
back to his
Okay.
addressing, saying that we were asking for 200. It is only if all other needs are not satisfied. It will not be raised unless it was absolutely needed.
Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. On Article 16 still, does anybody have any more comments on Article 16?
I guess hearing what Ann talked about, if indeed with the 5 new students we're going to spend 75 and the right number is 100, then maybe that warrant article should say 75.
Well, I mean, if you're going to maintain the same, I was kind of thinking the same lines. Now, I mean, I'm not sure the wording on that was, I mean, is it, I think we had told voters that we would have that 100,000 in case, because I think we told them that a student could move into the district that would cost us $100,000 to, now, I'm not sure how specific the language was on that. I mean, can you just use that to, can you just use that to offset a shortcoming in the 1,200 line?
No.
I mean, you know what I mean?
I don't know.
I think there's something about exhausting your budget before you can, yeah.
Is that the way that was?
You have to exhaust your 1,200 lines before you can access money from the
So
fund.
she would have to use her whole entire budget before she...
Right, I mean, it was, we told voters that it was an emergency fund because we were told that, a single student could require a $100,000 out-of-district placement for 1 year, so.
I've been involved in this school for over 20 years, and I can only remember one other time where we had an out-of-district placement that was over $100,000. This is highly unusual, having 5 of them. Highly unusual.
And highly expensive.
Highly expensive, too. Ann won't disagree with that.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all, and I guess I'm not exactly sure. I think the board recommended $100,000 to replenish that fund. My goal would be that we just continue to replenish that fund. Whatever the desire of the board is to put in there is to replenish that fund, because we are going to bring it down. If I have another student move in that cost us $100,000, we
Well, if
have
worse
to
comes
find
to
that
worse,
money.
you come back to us for a deficit appropriation.
Right.
So, I mean.
Which is what we put in Article 6. Sorry.
No, that's all right. No, I'm just,
I'm wondering about that 75 also.
do these students come, I mean, would come from another district, obviously, I mean, so would that same, they would have that same program there, and then they would move, they moved into our district, that would continue
So the process,
the same, so.
the process, how that occurs is if a student moves into our district that is in and out of district placement, we hold our own placement meeting and to determine whether or not we can successfully meet the needs of that student in our school. Sometimes we feel we can. We put programs in place that we hope will help us keep our kids in district. And then there are some students that, I can tell you that a student that is in a $100,000 out-of-district placement, it would probably be pretty hard for Paul's school to meet those needs within the school setting.
So you're obviously part of that committee that would evaluate that, right? I mean, so that would be you and other people in the SAU that would get, in this district, that would get together to make that determination. That's not someone from the state or another entity that comes in and works with you on that. That's all done by your committee?
It's the IEP team.
Okay.
Each student has their own team. If there's a financial impact to a student's IEP, I am at those meetings.
Right, so that would be, so who had the IEP would be like the teacher, or maybe an aide, or maybe a para
The teacher, the
educator,
special ed
they would all be involved in that same committee?
teacher, parent, special ed teacher,
Really isn't enough protection.
related service providers, and like I said, if it's a financial, if there's a financial piece to an IEP that is significant, I'm at those meetings.
Okay.
I don't know if Ann was here at the time when we had several kids on the spectrum, autism, and rather than sending them out of district, which would have been very costly, you started a program. Was it you?
No, it wasn't.
Started a
And
program at Paul School for those kids, and once they went on, the program was eliminated, but that saved a lot of money.
And I'm aware of that program, not unlike the program that I've recommended for our...
For the partners?
Right.
I'm thinking 75.
Who's going first? Dave, you've been pretty quiet.
If this article was defeated and no money was added, the money that's in there, it looks like it would be fairly quickly expended, and then that would defeat the whole point we started with, which was to have a little fund to keep this going. So this article essentially die if we don't fund it, because you're bailing money out of it.
I don't think we're talking about not funding it.
Dave did that. Yeah, Howie.
Well, I guess in any other year, I might agree. This year, I don't. And I guess I'm going back to Denny's point, that let's say we hold this article off for next year, and Ann does come in and say, okay, all of a sudden I need $125,000. We have that $200,000, because we're talking school year 18 and 19 right now, right? Not 19 and 20. So that $200,000 cushion is there, should it have to be used, right? I mean, that's what we talked about. See, to me, and I'm sorry to hound on this, but I have to keep reminding myself what school year we're talking about. Right. Mm-hmm. Because we're currently talking Article 6, and the children we're talking about with Ann are 19, 20.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that $200,000 is going to be there for 19, 20.
Right, and so this trust fund would be there for 20 and 21.
Exactly.
Right? So it would be the following year, so
No,
actually...
Well, there's 100,000
no,
now.
the students that we're referring to that have us in a deficit spending right now are 18, 19.
Yeah, 18, 19.
This year.
And that 200,000 is for 18, 19.
Right.
So if we held off this 100,000 for a year and see what you actually used, then we replenish it next year.
Right.
Up to $100,000.
But there's only 100,000 here. Where do you get 200?
Well, no,
The 200 in
from
Article 6.
Article 6 is to...
If it all goes to her, okay, you're talking
Articles-
about maybe 100 out of there and 100 out of here.
No, I'm just saying, just,
Well, no, if you run out of money and you need it between now and the end
Okay,
of
I got you.
June,
yeah.
you have that if that gets approved, you have that
Right.
200,000 in there to
So
handle it.
I take the 100,000 out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Right, I guess, to further explain that, the 1920 budget addresses our known out-of-district placements. That's the reason why our special ed budget is as much as it has.
So your budget is okay from now till June 30th of 2019 is what you're saying? You don't need that money till
No,
you can get, but I think what Howie's saying is the Article 6 money, if we're told the Article 6 money is to carry you through on any unexpected expenses that come up between now and June 30th. So if you have $200,000 in there and you have $100,000 in this for the special ed, if you needed it, that gives you $300,000 to get from now until June 30th, 2019.
But we haven't
Now-
voted on 6.
Right, we
Well,
have,
no, we haven't voted on 6. We haven't,
So that $200,000 isn't even,
well, it hasn't been approved by the voters, but neither is this. But the point is, you've got that 200,000 to get you, as a stopgap, to get you through June 30th, 2019. And you have this, so from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, you still have time to put money into the expendable trust fund if this winds up getting depleted. Yes.
if you put the money in, the trust of 100 or whatever you choose, and that might get us to the end and you don't have to raise the $200,000. All that 6 is asking for permission to raise it if it's needed. It isn't saying to raise it right now. It's permission that if we find ourselves in this position, if the trust fund is funded, that could prevent having to raise it later on.
Yes, but I mean, in your own personal financial world, if you had the opportunity to maybe not have to raise the $200,000 at all, would you rather take the opportunity to not have to raise the $200,000 at all, or would you jump ahead and invest $100,000 now that you may not use?
I think, I guess I do believe my administration and SAU and all the board has integrity.
Well, I'm not saying that.
That is my perspective, having gone through all of this. But the reason I think we're all having such difficulty is actually comprehending that there is a $300,000 increase in high school tuition, $68,000 in regular education healthcare costs because 4 plans were missed, $236 in the special ed function without the Partners Program.
I understand that, but we're not talking about the operating budget right now. We're talking about the warrant articles right now.
I know that, but the warrant articles are addressing the gap of that we started off $600,000 in the hole, and some of the stuff got moved over to the warrant articles. So it's 6.9% without any additions whatsoever. The school board only added 2.6% to a budget that was in the hole $600,000, which is why we're coming here to say it's very possible we're looking at a big deficit for last year's budget. I wish we weren't dealing with last year's budget on this year's budget. All I want to do is move forward. I mean, it really, we gutted it by $387,000. It is increased other the completely and entirely fixed items that do not improve the school in any way by $266,000, total of 2.6%, which includes gas, oil, electric increases. We didn't even separate it over that.
What is 2.6% of $10 million?
Well, this is the 9.5%.
No, I said, what is 2.6% of $10 million? I mean, that's not an insignificant amount of cash.
$266,000. $266,000.
It's a lot of money.
The breakdown.
But to get back to the warrant articles, And, I mean, does that make sense to you to, I mean, you said you'd like to have $100,000, we got 105 in there, I mean, so, I mean, if Article 6, I mean, there's a chance this wouldn't pass, there's a chance Article 6 won't, I mean, anything can happen when the voters are involved, but I mean, if you had the $100,000 in this trust fund available, and you had the potential to have the $200,000 available from Article 6 through June 30th, I mean, that would be $300,000 that may not all be something that you needed, but it may
I
be.
was just going to say, I don't believe that 200,000 that's being asked for is all special education.
Right, no. But I mean,
But
if
could
half
be
of it
used
is,
in
it's still
lieu of
giving you
the trust.
200,000.
Yes.
And then you still have the 100,000 for, yeah, how many, my years wrong, 2021.
Yeah.
Right.
All right? Yeah, 20.
Right.
19 and,
FY
19 and 20.
I mean, I believe in the past, my recollection is that you have put 25,000 in each year.
Right, we should
That-
go up to the
Right.
Right, and we did, because we wanted to get to $100,000 or $125,000
Right.
to have it as a insurance, kind of a hedge to protect the town in case that happened, but,
Is that one
I mean,
thing
so now you got that, and then if Article 6 passes, then you have the potential for another 200,000 on top of the 105 that's in there. I mean, granted, I mean, if that's not all for special education, but I mean, if you got 2/3 of it, or half, 2/3, or 3/4, I mean, it would be money available.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we should think about the 200,000 in terms of taking care of the deficit in special education.
Or, yeah, either or.
Either or,
Maybe not both.
right.
But I mean, the thing with the $200,000 is that if you wind up not needing it for some reason, then the taxpayers don't have to raise and appropriate, if I understand it right, the money doesn't get raised and appropriated by the taxpayers. I mean, that, you know, it may not be much money, but I mean, it's a little, it's something for the taxpayers who have been beat up pretty good in you know, several ways recently, so. But I mean, I know, you know, I mean, you've been here for, you've got a lot of experience in the district, and you know, so obviously your word carries a lot of weight with us.
Thank you. That's me.
So what are we going to do with this article?
I guess my question, or I'll throw this out to the board to consider. Since we have not voted on 6 yet, and the wording on 6, I'm almost thinking we can't vote on this one until we know what happens with that one. Because I think it's an either or. If we take 100, you know, if we do the 200,000, then I think this one comes out. If we don't do the 200,000, then I think this one stays in. Based on,
Well, I mean, I think that, and that's.
I just don't think I can do both, vote on either one separately from the other.
Right. I agree with that. Well, they're both addressing the same potential problem, but I mean.
Yeah, but I mean.
They're interrelated.
Yeah, they are.
With all due respect, they really aren't. We're off by tuition, we're off by insurance, totally unrelated to the special ed. As I just said earlier, we're off by $300,000 in tuition. We're already in a deficit of possibly an encumbered balance of $122,000. Obviously, you're going to choose to do what you need to do, but if it's only $100,000, I do believe we will be in a deficit without something severe with the budget. That is how difficult the current year's budget is. It isn't off by $100,000. It's off by closer to 300.
I'll table out at 16.
We have to withdraw your motion first, because
I didn't make a motion.
you did a motion to approve.
I said, I didn't make a motion, did I, Deb?
Is there a motion on that? So I thought, withdraw.
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw my second. Okay, now you can go.
I'll make a motion on table 16.
Motion, we got a second on that?
What was it?
Motion and second, who seconded it?
I did.
Denny? All in favor of tabling Article 16, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, Deb? So table that one.
Time is it anyway?
Late.
Not getting through the budget tonight.
10:19.
Article 17, shall the Wakefield School District vote to establish a maintenance contingency expendable trust fund per RSA 198:20, Section C, Roman numeral I, for the purpose of covering unanticipated building repairs, maintenance, and equipment, and to raise and appropriate a sum of $20,000 to be placed in the fund, and further designate the school board as agents to expend this fund. And then, weren't we talking about something else for maintenance?
Well, we're talking about the SAU.
Oh, okay, yep. Now,
This is another one we talked about moving out of the operating budget, remember?
would this, now we ran into the problem with the SAU building not being covered under the other capital reserve fund. Would this be worded to be inclusive of any building on the property or
I
on
would
the...
think so.
Huh?
I would think that was the intent.
You'd think it was the intent?
I don't know, Joe. Yeah.
To include the school in this?
Yeah.
There's something that one of our neighbors goes down, we get a whole new, we get totally different, so we get something that happens.
Don't pick the roof.
Don't pick the roof.
Right. But that would include the SAU offices and, well, I mean,
Any school district.
Yeah.
It's one district now.
All right.
Can I ask the trustees a question on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Why can't we buy the glass in Article 17? Why can't we replace the windows using 17?
Well, because this hasn't been established yet.
And this is for
Well, I
unanticipated.
mean, this is to establish that due...
For maintenance, it's a maintenance contingency expenditure.
Right.
Isn't replacing the glass maintenance, the windows?
Unanticipated building repair, yeah.
Well, I don't...
Jerry,
Yes.
I wanted
The windows
to
would
point
be-
out that the window fund is a planned expense, a planned event. This is for unanticipated, and it does match the previous meeting's recommendation by the budget committee for that amount, so
Right.
that's how I differentiate it, and that's a plan that they plan to execute, hopefully with some evidentiary investigation, but
Okay.
because I've been following what we recommended at the last meeting.
Yeah, unanticipated.
The windows wouldn't be unanticipated.
Dave, yes.
In the way of background, and maybe for people at home who aren't experienced in the budget process, the state, by way of the RSAs, wants the voter to go into the booth and read a warrant article to see exactly what the money is going for. And that's why a warrant article says for windows. It doesn't say for whatever the principal wants to spend the money on, because that's too vague. So the state guidance is that these warrant articles are very specific. On the other hand, the principal doesn't know when the boiler's going to start leaking or something else, like the pipes are going to rust for the fire suppression.
I think we'd
So you put a small amount of money in an article that is for unanticipated emergency kind of things, so that you're not looking at all these buckets of money that say windows, roof, very specific. Whoa, gee, none of them said anything about the sprinkler pipes rusting and leaking, so we can't fix them because we don't have the money. So it's always a trade-off. When I see something that we know what it is, we can bid it, the school board can come and say the windows are going to cost this, down to $20, then that's very appropriate for it to be specific. But then you also do need, this is the open-ended one. And this is when the principal comes in and he's soaking wet because something blew up. You have the money to fix it. Up to $20,000. Not unlimited.
I have to change.
We're going to scratch that up too on the, because we got to have this, right, yeah, I should have, yeah.
I gotta come out,
I didn't think of that before I read through
Right,
that.
with
But I mean, yeah, I
20,000
mean,
even.
unanticipated
Instead of up to,
building
it's just
repairs.
20,000 even.
It's not unsimilar to cemetery maintenance, but I'll even say town hall improvements. I mean, it's not dissimilar.
Move the article.
Second.
Get a motion in a second?
Have you ever gone over your budget, Joe? Have you ever gone over your budget? For anything? Has your budget ever been, have you ever overexpended your budget, your particular budget?
For maintenance?
For his budget in general? And most of the time, when somebody's looking for money in another area, they're taking it out of your budget. Yes?
No, Tracy, yeah.
Right.
Or other people go to your budget and take it out, which happens all the time.
Well, actually, both of those budgets have a lot of variables. Last year, it was actually special ed that kind of helped us out. We had less anticipated outsourced, and actually, that was one of the areas where you have to anticipate or protect what you might actually need, and same thing with Joe. We have 35-year-old boilers. You know, $20,000 isn't going to...
I got applauded.
Yes.
Didn't we have a fund?
But last year it was special ed. These are budgets with huge variables, and we make it where if we may raid them every once in a while if they do have extra, but not because they have to protect the budget.
Thank you for that. Well, I mean, yes.
I just don't think this is a year to add your contingency fund of 20,000. I mean, it's so high anyway.
Don't we have, wasn't there a fund for boilers?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
That's a replacing, not maintenance.
Right.
But
well,
next-
if it blows up, I mean...
It's going to be replaced.
Well, I mean, yeah, so, I mean, the thing...
But we
Well, I
start...
mean, we do have, some...
Actually, we start the next year.
Wait a minute. Tracy?
I believe we did put them on the CIP, and they're starting next year. They are not funded.
Okay. Well,
What?
yeah, but I know we had a... I know we had...
They're on the CIP, but I believe we moved them to next year, right?
Didn't we replace one recently?
No, we haven't.
No, we got 37,000.
But we got money in that fund for them anyway. It was for the boilers.
You know, if Joe
Right.
Right.
We also have pumps that are moving on a lot of through our lines that we had one go 2 years ago.
And they're not under the boiler. Because it's not a boiler. Yeah. So this is kind of what you're aiming it at.
Well, if you had ever gone over, then I would agree, but you don't.
I think we sold it on.
Still trying to see that's been in the operating budget for years.
We got a motion.
Yeah, we have a motion, right, in a second?
Yep.
On establishing a maintenance contingency expendable trust fund and adding $20,000 to it. Now, what's the, I mean, what do you want to, Tracy, what do you want to wind up having in this? Is this 20,000 going to be sufficient, or do we want to, is this something that we're going to want to build up to 50 or 60, or how much do you want to wind up having in this fund?
I guess it depends on the state of our repairs. Right now, we have two very, very old boilers, so I'd probably want it higher.
Right, we got a fund for boilers.
Right.
I'm sorry.
We have a boiler fund and everything like that. This is $20,000 just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just wondering, I mean, are we going to put 20 in next year, and are we going to build it up to 80 or 90 or 100 or?
You have something, $100,000 going up.
Yeah, well,
Gonna be getting a new school.
but the thing is, I mean, and I mean, a lot of people don't maybe appreciate the situation that budget committee members and stuff are in, but, we're elected and we're elected and we're supposed to try and make sure that taxpayer funds are spent responsibly, right? So, I mean, if someone comes in and wants to start a capital reserve fund with 20,000. I mean, it's almost incumbent on us to ask you, is this seed money for a $250,000 fund, or is this, so I mean, it's not, it's nothing personal, it's just trying to find out, what we can find out. Dave?
Sure, I've got a question.
Yes.
I'm a little confused about the language on this, because it says for the sum of up to.
Yeah, we already talked
We had
about
to
that.
scratch
That's
that,
coming out.
sorry. Yeah.
It's 20,000.
Yeah, that's a flat 20, yep.
Joe, would you go with 10,000 this year and 10,000 next year?
Why? Well, I mean, it's just a little olive branch for us to, we have to get reelected sometimes, and so what winds up happening is at least we can look back, we can hand them a $15 million budget and say, well, look, we saved you $50, so, on March 13th, come out and vote, because we just can't wait to do this all over again and again and again.
Is there a motion on this?
Yes, there is a motion and a second.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to 10,000. Denny, you seconded, didn't you?
Yes.
So you want to make that 10,000 to be added to that?
No, replace the 20.
Replace the 20, not
Okay,
10.
make it 10, okay, right. So we have a motion to change that from 20,000 to 10,000, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Got one
So
opposed.
now,
You got one opposed?
Yeah.
I opposed.
Tracy?
well, we don't have to tally those, but that's fine. It was the majority
do.
vote. Huh? Oh.
I know, we just have to.
We didn't have to tally we'd have to tally the Article 17. We'll wind up saying shall the Wakefield School District to establish that fund and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be placed in it and designate the school board. Do we have any discussion on that?
Make a motion.
Make a motion for the 10-grand motion in a second. All in favor, raise your hands. Gotcha. I got someone down there. Someone said aye.
Did Tracy raise her hand?
The hands have to go up.
No, I'll take it. I'm not saying no.
10 to no. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Joe,
Hey, Joe.
for contributing.
Yeah. Article 18, looks like the last one. Shall the Wakefield School District vote to authorize indefinitely until rescinded the retention of year-end unassigned general funds in an amount not to exceed in any fiscal year 2.5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment in accordance with RSA 198:4, Section B, Roman numeral 2. Such fund balance retained can only be used to reduce the tax rate this is what kills me, can only be used to reduce the tax rate, or emergency expenditures and over expenditures under RSA 3211, which are approved by the Department of Education. So there. The school board apparently approved this by a vote of 5-0.
We've seen this
And
before.
our discussion winds up being, I have never had a problem with the surplus being returned to the town, and I think the selectmen have done a great job with it and using it to reduce the
We've had
tax
this one
rate.
before.
Yeah,
Right.
We've had this one before.
So what do we have on this for discussion? Yeah, that's it there, but
If I have any, just a little bit of input, there used to be larger amounts returned to the town. Our budgets are much, much closer than they used to be. Hence, you probably can see a little bit more of our concern through some of the requests, and that's just what this is. Obviously, it can be used for emergency purposes, otherwise it's returned to the town. But because the budgets are running so much closer, there's a concern.
okay. I had a thought.
Right.
It fleeting thought. So as long as I've forgotten what I was going to say, yes.
Okay. So I don't know if the Wakefield School District or community was aware that this became law, I don't know, probably 6, 7 years ago, that school districts were not allowed historically to have any fund balance retained. And this was a way to do it. And Tracy's correct. The school board's concerned about where we are with the budget, and this was one way to remedy that. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the process in order to access this money, if it does get voted to move forward. So before you can access this money, which is actually stated on your tax, when your tax rate is set, there is a page in the back of the tax rate that lets you know what that dollar amount is. The school board can ask for partial money to be put in the fund or all of it, and part of it to be returned to the taxpayers. There is a very lengthy process in order to access this money. First, you have to have a budget. You have to go to the budget committee. The budget committee has to approve it. You have to have a district meeting to withdraw the money. You have to deplete all other revenue sources before you access this money. So if you have a trust fund, the money from the trust fund needs to be depleted before you access this money. So it's not something that could be easily accessible. It was just another way to have a school district to have the first time to have some sort of fund balance, but there are different processes to go through to access it. I just wanted everybody to be clear, wanted everybody to know, to have a clear understanding of what the purpose of it is.
And that would be held by the treasurer, I think, of the school district. So how much money does the SAU hold right now, do you know? Do you have any?
No.
Oh, money on what?
No, they don't have any.
Oh, money on what?
No,
I'm sorry,
do we have any?
Priscilla?
Did you say special meeting? So that's costly. Why not just ask for a deficit appropriation if you get to that point? Just wondering.
It's an option to have money. To have in case you needed to utilize it.
But it seems like you have more of a process to go through to do this than you would to ask for a
Yes.
deficit.
Yes.
So this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It didn't last time we saw it either.
Can I question, Jerry?
Yes.
When they say net, all right, current fiscal year's net assessment, what is the net assessment?
Here, I do have it.
Is that the one from this tax bill? I got, you do better than me, Marie, if I did. Because I didn't see anything with it. Yeah. Page 4 is nothing about assessment.
Yeah, this one?
You're talking about valuation?
Well,
It says right here, I'm looking at the 17 tax rate, it says 2017 RSA 198. You can see right here where the line says local school, net assessment 7,014,140. And it says 2.5% net assessment, that's what the school board has the option to claim.
Oh, there it is, okay.
I don't know what the 18
I didn't see the 18, on the 18 form, I didn't see it on there. That's why I didn't know what it was.
It comes from the DRA.
This is it. This is 18s.
Yeah, I know, I don't see it either. I don't know if I'm missing a page.
So on 17, it was 187,000.
So every year, it changes based on the assessed value. And also,
Well,
let's say the school board determines to retain that 1 year. It goes back to every year you have to, so it goes right back into the general fund. And then every year, depending on what that dollar amount is, the board needs to determine how they who's going to utilize it or not. And if they do utilize it, it goes right back to the, on the MS 25.
25.
It comes right back out. Is that clear?
Howie?
Yep.
Help me with this.
What he said?
You're an old finance guy. This is 2.5% per fiscal year, isn't this cumulative?
No.
Is this what?
It does, it says that they can keep 2.5% every year, doesn't it?
They can apply to use it that year. They can't add it up. Can't add, it won't accumulate then.
Where does it say?
Right here, right there.
To do it again
This
next
is
year.
not cumulative.
Yeah.
Right
You have to do it every year.
I didn't have that on mine, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
I still don't understand why we want to do it to begin with, so.
No, I don't, I think it just adds confusion.
Yeah.
I mean, because it says, there's one thing that kind of can be used to reduce the tax rate. I know the selectmen can use money to reduce the tax rate, but I'm not sure how the school would have to return it to the town, and then the selectmen would have to use it to reduce the tax rate, because, the school district wouldn't have any impact on the...
Actually, they do.
Well,
they're like the 340 they gave back last year was used to reduce the tax.
Well, it was, but it was given back to the town. It goes back to the town to be used to reduce the tax rate, right?
It doesn't come out of water and out of culture.
Yeah.
Did anybody make a motion or anything?
I don't think so. Deb would know. Did anybody?
No.
We didn't make a motion. No, we just read it.
Motion to vote no.
Motion to vote no.
Okay, so...
I'll make a motion to vote no.
I'll second that.
Well, why don't we make a motion and then second, and then we'll vote on it, just for the heck of it. Let's do it that way.
What did I just do?
You made a motion?
I made a motion to vote no.
Okay.
That was my motion.
All right.
I seconded it.
I made a motion to vote no. And
We made a motion to move the article.
because they're getting a little testy, because I think it's late at night.
It is. I'm ready to go home.
You're kidding.
No.
All right, so we got a motion on this, so,
Why do you want to vote no?
Late an hour ago.
I don't know, can we actually do that?
I don't know.
I'll second it to get to a vote.
What each says already.
well, okay, so we moved Article 18, so the motion is to vote no. All right, all in favor of voting no on Article 18, raise your hand. Did you get that, Deb? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Not even
8 to 2?
I know.
So this is not recommended.
Right.
8 to... Thanks, Howie, for throwing that at me at 11 o'clock at night. I should have been asleep 2 hours ago.
You got that right.
Well, I think we made it through the warrant articles. Obviously, we didn't get to the big warrant article. We never got to the warrant article that involved the operating budget. We did get the default budget tonight, which is helpful. So we're going to have to try and, we can't do any more tonight.
No.
We're
much.
going to have to come up with another plan. I don't think that, I'm not sure if this is something we can discuss in a half-an-hour meeting just prior to our public hearing on the 8th.
No.
I would say probably it isn't. We're going to have to try and schedule one more meeting. I guess to try and determine what the Budget Committee's recommendation is going to be that's going to go on the warrant for the operating budget this year. Well, I mean, it would be possible, if somebody had a budget figure, we could possibly vote on a bottom line budget figure and decide.
It's too important to do it that way, Jerry, I think.
Okay, well, just an option.
Just my thoughts,
Well, okay, that's fine. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
We tabled a number of items tonight. When is the school board going to be able to discuss these and come up with a recommendation, a final recommendation based upon today's discussion?
On the warrant article.
Yeah.
On the warrant articles, yes.
We were anticipating December the 27th next week, Thursday, but have not cleared that with all board members to make sure that they could.
So Jerry, it'd have to be sometime after the 27th and
Yeah.
before where we could reconvene and go over it, so we're talking, and now, don't we have a deadline coming up with a 30-day notice for the,
Well, we got the public hearing the 6th.
Well, Tony already noticed, she already posted our public hearing for the 8th of January, and then the other one for the 15th. So, I mean, we've got that set, and we will have that posted in the paper, so, you know, I mean, you know, it depends on it depends on everybody's schedule. I mean, I remember in September, we were talking about this, and I tried to make the point as well as I could that I wanted to get this all done before Thanksgiving, because I didn't want us to have to deal with it between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So now what we want to do, we've been put into the position and backed up against the wall. So now, are we gonna discuss it between Christmas and New Year's, or would you be willing to discuss it after New Year? I mean, sometime before the 8th of January, when our public hearing is. I mean,
2nd, 3rd, or 4th.
Is it more convenient to do it?
you know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, someplace early January.
Early January.
Yeah, and then everybody's got some time to review this.
I've been, you know, this has been an unbelievable year, but I did everything I could. I begged and pleaded with these guys to get us this stuff early and on time, and I would like to know that we can get all this information from the school board and the SAU and finally, I mean, that will be like the 5th or the 6th meeting that we've scheduled. I mean, that's kind of unbelievable, but I would like to have some kind of assurance that we're going to have this in time, that we can review it prior to a meeting early in January. I mean, I'd just like to have a guarantee from somebody, anybody that's in charge, that could tell us, guarantee us that we're going to be able to wrap this up at our next meeting, possibly the 2nd or the 3rd of January. Is there anybody that can give us that guarantee? I mean, this has been horrendous. I know that, you said that, you can't see why we can't, but we have unanticipated things come up where we just don't get the job done. Is there somebody that can guarantee us that it will?
So on that evening, we would have a bottom line budget from the budget committee, and we would be able to provide that for the public hearing.
I have a bottom line budget.
Okay.
In the revised warrant articles.
Deb, we're all set, right? I mean, we'll have to schedule another meeting. Will you be around the beginning of January? Can I go with you? Please? I loved it down there. They dragged me back to the airport, kicking and screaming.
No.
What do we want to do?
Let's pick a date first,
Okay.
and then we'll do the minutes. I don't forget minutes.
Just want to,
What's the date?
2nd. I like the 2nd.
I do have something.
Second,
Only
Wednesday,
because it gives us time.
Wednesday the 2nd at 6:30 right here?
They increased their budget here by 10%.
Can you write that down or email it to me?
I
Or
will do that.
A total of 18% over the last 2 years.
does anybody, okay, so Deb, those are the meetings, you had 2 sets of meetings? Minutes?
Just one.
Is that correct? They're out.
We approved the rest of them.
Oh, that's right, too.
Town, this is the
12 to 6, and so, someone want to make a motion to,
Yeah, the town increased their.
someone make a motion to approve those minutes from the 6th?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Does anybody else have anything that we need to?
Yeah, you weren't there.
James, yes.
I said I abstained from
Yeah.
I do have one question I've been wanting to ask since,
I know, but you know what? You've had the floor. Plenty.
We'd meet here in Town Hall?
Yes. James, you had a question?
No, I was saying I abstained from the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
For the minutes.
Yes. Tracy, I never keep you from talking. I don't, yes.
I just want to know if I understand this, that the town budget increased by 10%
I'm flying back.
in 18 and 8% this year, 8.33?
I don't know, I'd have to look at that. I don't remember.
Town budget, What is it?
It was what I got, just was handed out today.
I think they said it overall was like .07.
0.07% was up.
No, but what was the operating budget?
8.3.
Gross operating budget.
8.3.
10%, 0.24, and then 8%, 8.33?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
correct?
But the bottom line is it's down by.
But those are the numbers, right?
Yeah. So that's about,
The school's up by 9
well, anyway, that percentages are based on what the gross amount is. So I mean, an 8% increase if it were on the town wouldn't be $2 million. So.
Move to adjourn?
Yes. We're all set, right? We're done.